Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As we're about to begin, please be seated. And before we start the conference today, on behalf of Savills Hotels Asia Pacific, I would like to send a special thanks to our event partners who have greatly supported the conference today. And our appreciation goes to Hafle, Lý Gia Viên, Intercontinental Hotel Saigon, Saint Gobain, Nguyen, Dark Horse, Indochine Engineering, Archetype, and the Beam Factory. And now I would like to introduce to all of you the host and the organizer of Meet Expert event, Mr. Mauro Gasparotti, Director of Savills Hotel Asia Pacific. Please welcome on stage.
Everybody, welcome to the Meet the Expert event. I think this is the biggest hospitality event in Vietnam this year. And I may even say it's one of the biggest worldwide. So congratulations, everybody, and congratulations to Vietnam for making these things happening. I'm very happy. I'm very happy of all this crowd. I'm very happy to see so many people because I actually was very worried this year to organize an event. I think I've been worried the whole month. Myself, my team, we've been worried about finding the sponsor in 2020, finding the speaker, and of course, people showing up at events. So I was worried about everything also that was not under our control. But we decided to go ahead because we thought that being not in control, the feeling of not being in control, it's kind of 2020 business environment for everybody, especially the people in the hospitality industry. We are not really in control. So this year, the uncertainty level that we had to deal with was much higher than ever expected or never experienced before. So as a result, we aim to really make a conference like this, to be able to at least reduce a bit the level of uncertainty by the only things that we can do as a consultant to share information and pick up some of the expertise in the room for you guys to make a better decision. So today we'll try to forecast the future. We have a great event. We have more than 4 hours. We have a lot of people. We have a lot of speakers. We are actually live streaming right now, and my best guess is that my mom is on the other side. So ciao mama for today. You finally know what I do for a living in Vietnam. We have a great agenda. I think we'll start with a lot of information, a lot of performance. Then we'll move to talk about the people that are in the operation, the frontliners. Then Ken will take us through a bit of update into the economic. Then we have a tea break. We start another good panel with a developer and an investor. And then we'll move into the mega trends and the design. Of course, after the whole thing, we have a good cocktail and network. Please stay until the end. A lot of you just come for the cocktail, so it's coming. Don't worry, 7:30. Okay, before I start, we have a great speaker today who will come to join us. We're very honored to have him to share a little bit, hopefully good news about the market, but I will let Nguyen make a proper introduction to our honored guest, and I'll see you later in a few minutes.
Thank you, Mauro. Vâng, tôi xin được trân trọng giới thiệu tới quý vị đồng chí Nguyễn Trùng Khánh, Tổng cục trưởng Tổng cục Du lịch Việt Nam sẽ có đôi lời phát biểu tại hội nghị ngày hôm nay. Xin được trân trọng kính mời ông.
Good afternoon, everybody. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for me to be invited to deliver the opening speech at the Meet of the Expert 2021 Vietnam Hospitality Conference held by Savills Hotel in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam today. On behalf of the Vietnam National Administration of Tourism under the Ministry of Culture, Sport and Tourism of Vietnam, I would like to present my best compliments and extend our warmest congratulations to all of you at the conference. Ladies and gentlemen, tourism has been identified as an important economic sector of Vietnam. In 2019, Vietnam welcomed more than 18 million international visitors and served 85 million domestic travelers, contributing about 32.8 billion US dollars to the economy, equivalent to 9.2% of GDP, and it's created 4 million jobs. The industry maintained a stable growth rate of 22% throughout the periods of 2016 to 2019. In the hotel industry, a total tourism accommodation also recorded at approximately 30,000 ones and 650,000 rooms, with more than 500 hotels classified from 4 to 5 stars. The growth rate of 14% per annum in the hotel sector in the last 5 years, and about positive outcome has been lasted until to February 2020. By the end of March 2020, Vietnam international tourism activity has been mostly suspended. In the first 9 months of 2020, the number of international tourists to Vietnam were 3.7 million, decreased around 70% in the number of domestic tourists was 43 million. The tourist income was about 9.4 billion US dollars, decreased around 55% compared to the same period in 2019. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Vietnam has successfully controlled by second wave of COVID-19. The government of Vietnam has worked out various stimulus packages and reform administrative procedures to create favorable conditions for experts and investors to enter Vietnam for working, investing, and seeking business cooperation opportunities. The government has also requested industry to achieve a dual goal for promoting socio-economic development and preventing COVID-19 disease. Domestic tourist activity of Vietnam has 3 months totally recovered in May, June, and July. Under the promotion campaign, the Vietnamese people travel inside Vietnam, and Vietnam, the safety and smiling destination. The domestic tourist program have achieved remarkable results, where the number of domestic tourists increased over 20% compared with the same period of 2019. Vietnam National Administration of Tourism is planning to launch a new domestic stimulus campaign with the message, Vietnam Travel to Experience. Ladies and gentlemen, this conference is organized under the above context and in the endless efforts of the Vietnamese government to resume 6 international scheduled flight routes with China, Japan, South Korea, Chinese Taipei, Cambodia, and Laos since September 15, 2020. Experts and visitors entering Vietnam for long-term business purpose is being considered to take reduced quarantine periods from 40 days to 5 days. Since early September 2020, the government of Vietnam has also allowed experts and individuals entering Vietnam less than 40 days for diplomatic and officials. Business purpose will not be requested to quarantine. However, the people must strictly comply with all medical regulations on COVID-19 prevention. This pilot of reopening the border will be considered to expand with other key and potential tourism markets of Vietnam. Experience from various crises such as SARS, bird flu, financial crisis, etc., showing that the tourism industry is the first sector has very heavy negative influence, but also the industry has the most rapid and strongly recovery. Therefore, I believe the tourism industry will also quickly recover and grow strongly when COVID-19 disease is controlled in the near future. With this regard, I highly appreciate Savills Hotels to organize the conference where investors, tourism and hotel operators, media and interested parties can share knowledge and experience to propose timely solutions for Vietnam tourism to overcome the negative influence of COVID-19 pandemic in the coming years. Last but not least, I wish meet the expert conference accomplish success, wishing the tourism industry of Vietnam to be soon quite recover and further develop. Thank you.
Xin được trân trọng cảm ơn ông. Thank you, Mr. Nguyen Trung Khánh, for joining the conference today and sharing a lot of positive vibes to the audience. And coming up, I would like to recall Mauro Gasparotti to deliver a presentation on the Vietnam hospitality market. Please.
Thank you, Nguyen. I need to deliver it. Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much. Was great, and was great to know that we all working together this year. There's no more competition between people in the room and just a single industry. So I'm going to just to share with you a bit of a story today, just a really bit summary and just looking at some number. So my story will really take with numbers. We look at through this year and hopefully some insight for next year. Now, the first number I'm going to present to you is 1.4 billion, which I guess you guessed, is the number of global tourism arrival in 2019. Now, this is not just a big number, it's actually a number that's been growing for the last 100 years. Hospitality is a tremendous industry, contributes a lot to Vietnam GDP, but for a lot of country GDP, so it's really good industry. Traveling is becoming part of the way we live, the way we work, the way we study, the way we learn. So hospitality was a fantastic and growing industry. Megatrends has helped all this growth of the industry. Now, megatrend does everything that is happening around us, but we always choose 4 as the direct contribution for the growth of the hospitality. Technology, demographic change, changing consumer behavior, and of course, transportation and aviation. That's really push up all our industry. Technology make it much simple, easier, safer, and much more personalized the travel. But it didn't just change the way people travel. It changed the way we design hotel, it changed the way we build hotel, it changed the way we operate hotel, has helped a lot the hospitality market. Demographic shift, of course, with all this booming and increasing of middle class, especially here in this part of the world, we see a lot of family travelers, a lot of first-time travelers, really entering into the traveler market, people that were not there before. Senior population is also tremendous growth for travelers. Last year, one of the biggest I think solo travelers was actually the silver nomads, the single travelers that then now they have enough money, they have enough saving to actually see the rest of the world. And of course, millennia always been big traveler. You are nobody if you don't have some good picture of your travel in your Facebook. But of course, also the change in consumer behavior has helped hospitality. People don't want goods anymore, they want to buy experience. This is a very bad news for a lot of industry, especially the luxury industry, but it's a great news for hospitality because it's all about experience. And then, of course, the aviation and transportation. So we all see much cheaper fly, much more connected country, and of course, all the investment into infrastructure, which has helped Vietnam a lot in the last 10 years. Really new fly, new infrastructure, new airport. So all of this together made an extremely good industry. And everybody was sitting on this industry and looking into the future, happy with a lot of business to come, until we are reminded how fragile is also hospitality industry. How volatile is this market now? Doesn't happen only to hospitality, to a lot of them, but nobody was prepared. As a consequence, we go to our second number, which was already mentioned before, is the drop in global arrival expected this year. Now, we probably know this already. It's not the first time we drop. We saw it before, but it's definitely the biggest drop ever. But it's not just a big drop. It's been actually a very prolonged drop. So what happened we are now not just talking about a slowdown on the industry, we are talking about, in certain cases, of shutdown of the industry. And that somehow creates a bit of a problem, not for the bad number that we all saw this year, for the actual recovery. Unfortunately, the recovery will no longer just be about bringing back the demand. The recovery will also be making the machine works, especially all those guys reworking together as they were doing before. So this is a very important part of the recovery. As a result, it brings us to a third not so good number, which is 2024, is where we expect this recovery to happen. To go back to 19 number, 2024. Now, this is just an estimation, a lot of variable into it. We really don't know what it will be, but what we know for sure is that we missed what we all hoped at the beginning, the V-shaped recovery. So the short and fast recovery, unfortunately, we miss it. But what about Vietnam? Now, Vietnam, we know, dropped, same as every other country. International are down. Hotel are actually having a not a good time, so pretty much as every country. But somehow we thought, and we still think, we are different. We thought in a much faster recovery, and we still hope of a much faster recovery. And why? Well, first of all, we control the virus. So that has allowed local to travel again, and also allowed Vietnam to be seen as a safe destination as soon as we reopen the borders. So that's a big thing. The other things that help us to believe in a short recovery is our number. We really come out from a very strong growth. This is a 5 years number. Almost 20% growth in international travel. This is 5 times the average globally. So really Vietnam was getting its momentum. 45 branded properties, 70 new international routes, and a lot of room that open, and an enormous pipeline. It's one of the biggest one in Asia Pacific. So we really come from this strong growth. We were confident to have a shorter recovery. But there are also 3 numbers that help our confidence. Those 3. 80% of our international tourism come from Asia. Now, why this is good news? Because Asians are the ones that control the virus better, are also the ones closer to us, are the ones that are expected to choose short distance traveling as soon as they reopen. Probably China, Korea, all of them, they will not maybe visit Europe and US as soon as they reopen. They will prefer short travelers, and Vietnam is in a great position. Of course, 85 million Vietnamese tourists. This is an enormous number, and we really rely on this to get the machine going back. But also the outbound tourism. Vietnamese going outside last year, traveling abroad last year. This year they will stay here and have higher higher spending. As a result, in May, when the lockdown was open, 78% of the property reopened. Very positive. Everybody was waiting this fast recovery because somehow the idea was, if I just can hit our summer, if I can just hold my breath a little bit, summer will come, the travel bubble that before we discussed it will work. So I just need to hold my breath a little bit and I will be fine. And at the beginning it worked. We all know that May, June, July, we saw all this great number of local tourists coming back. In certain statistics, we actually have more passengers than last year, the local demand. Drive-by destination, very happy. Ho Chi Minh, Vung Tau, everything that was reachable by car, doing very well. But also coastal destination. A lot of new booking coming to Phu Quoc, Nha Trang, Da Nang. Everything was coming in place. And for the second time, we're looking into this great industry of growth until Mike decided to come back and visit us in Da Nang. So we are now really looking into the second part of recovery. The problem this time is that it was different. Because when that happened, somehow it hit our hope of a fast recovery. I'm trying here to get a breath a bit more back. Somehow we know that the recovery is not going to be as fast as we initially thought. So we started to talk about to have pre-opening delayed. We start to have planning delay. A lot of condo hotels started to move the launch to next year. And we started to talk about distressed assets. Not to see distressed asset, but the discussion was coming. So that's where we are pretty much now. There's still good news around, which we saw the confidence of traveler coming back. So we start what I define as the second way of recovery. So the market is moving back. We are getting back in track. But somehow we need to plan for 2021. Now, this is all of you planning for next year. So we'll try everybody to really grab something that help us to hope that there is a bit of review. And we do have some good news that we can always have. We have a local demand. If you look at China, for example, a local demand is what get them back in terms of hotel, and hopefully later some of the panelists will share that. So somehow we really strongly rely on our local demand. We should probably take hotel to keep working on promotion, really try to get everybody to visit our beautiful hotel, but somehow that will be the main demand. I'm still very positive about Asian travelers. As soon as we can reopen some connection, Vietnam is in a great position. Safe country, closer to them, we really can capture more demand. Of course, wellness travelers, luxury boutique, they all do fine this year, and drive-by destination will be still probably safe. Not just as visiting hotel, not just hotel, but also maybe condo hotel, and a new project into drive-by destination, because people start to feel it. I don't mind to buy something in Ocham, for example, and I don't have any sponsor for me from Ocham today. I don't like to buy something because I want a vacation home now that I can reach via car. So somehow some of the destination will do well. Of course, we are also worried. There are a lot of things that make us worry. Distressed assets, they will come. Somehow there will be certain situations where there are. Now, it's a big discussion. We don't know anymore the definition of distressed because the value in the market will drop. So hotel valuation will be very challenging this year to really understand where we are at with value. So we'll probably see a lot of big difference of an expectation from buyer and seller for a few months to go. The future of business travelers is also a big uncertainty because people are getting very familiar with Zoom. Will they ever be back to travel? Probably at the beginning, just to have a bit of fun travel, but the reality is everybody has learned how to use connection. But what is for sure is that we need to reinvent our business. We need to reinvent our costs. We need to reinvent our HR structure. We need to reinvent our marketing, looking into different kind of segments. But somehow we all are doing this already. But the most important thing is we need to probably reinvent our client base. And this allows me to finish this presentation with a bit of good news. Because hospitality has already been reinventing their client base for the last 10 years. We all went away from defining business and leisure family and talking about eco-warriors, silver nomad, wellness travelers. We already start this process of reinventing our industry. I like this because a lot of people take picture. Usually that's when I need to pause. And as a result of this change of base demand, the properties start to change. We don't talk about 3, 4, and 5-star hotel anymore. We talk about wellness resort, postel, boot camp, brandy residence. The industry has already been changing. So we just need to follow that. And as last slide, with a bit of a hope, we are in a country that has been embracing change for the last 10 years. We are in a country that's always been welcoming new brands or new idea or new products. So we all just need to get together, doing conference like this, sharing, and really hope in the future of recovery. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mauro, for a great delivery. Now that we all understand the Vietnam hospitality market, let's have a look at the Southeast Asia market. We're now connecting with Ms. Fanady Uriarte from the Philippines. She is the business development from Estia. Please have a look at the screen. We're now connecting with Ms. Vanity.
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Nung, for the introduction. I'm not sure if you can see my slide now. Just prompt me if you can see my slide. I think it's there already. Right. It's great to be part of this conference. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be virtually present for this time. And what I'm here to do is to share you some regional market updates. So that includes Vietnam and the rest of the Southeast Asian region. Right. So before I give you the numbers, for those of you who are not familiar with STR, STR is part of the CoStar group of companies. We have been the leader of data benchmarking, and we have been doing this for over 35 years. So whether you're a hotel owner, hotel management, or even looking at investing at the hotel, we are the one who can probably help you with the data. So to give you a global perspective, so most of you here are probably asking, how is the hotel industry? So when we look at the global perspective into occupancy, so we have made 4 buckets of occupancy here. One is the red, the yellow, and also the greens. So generally, most of the markets as of 26th of September, the report that we have done is that most of the hotels are in less than 50% occupancy. Now, what is the movement of occupancy levels in Asia Pacific? Now, we're going to look at 2 points. One is in early February and another one is the early October. So based on our latest data. So this is a representation. So if we look at early February, majority of the Chinese market has been gripped with low occupancy. You're looking at less than 25% occupancy levels. But 8 months after, China is now looking much better. As you can see, they are now towards going to the green. That means they have over 50% going to 75% occupancy. But still, when we look at Asia Pacific, especially Southeast Asia, we are now looking at a very little demand. In fact, the occupancy buckets is really going below 25%. Now, of course, when we look at recovery, as Mauro has mentioned earlier, the arrow points to China. We're looking at now the occupancy for China is going back to about 2019 levels. And if we would compare that from June all the way to August, mainland China, first-tier cities, that means you got Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and also Shenzhen, and other cities, only the first-tier cities is still quite lagging as compared to the other major cities in China. Now, we need to get a little bit up close to the different regions in Asia Pacific to get a better sense of how our occupancy or how's the demand is. China, we already have mentioned that, they're working towards recovery. Japan and Korea, also, we have seen some green shoots. Pacific, also quite good, except that, you got some green, some red dots there, meaning those are for the Melbourne market where they have the closure. But Southeast Asia generally is on critical levels of occupancy. But this mainly driven, we got a Malaysian market, Vietnamese market, the Philippine market, and also the other parts of Indochina. Now, moving closer to the ASEAN, so we have 3 current levels here. So if we will break down ASEAN's occupancy from January all the way to September, so here at the lower portion, this includes the Indochina markets, including Myanmar. So we're looking around 15 to 20% occupancy levels. Now, the second current levels, we're looking at Philippines, Malaysia, and also Indonesia. We're seeing a little bit of growth there for Indonesia and also Malaysia. Malaysia is, in fact, one of the contenders now for a little bit of domestic growth because we have seen some growth into the regions. Now, for the Philippines, it's a little bit stagnant. Still, occupancy is around 30% levels. And, against all the ASEAN markets, we have seen that Singapore is still enjoying a 75% level of occupancy, mainly driven by the government support because majority of the hotels are also used as a quarantine facility. Now, how do we know if there are signs of development in your market? So when we look at benchmarking, we have pointed out that one of the 6 ways of finding out how benchmarking can support your recovery is really to look at the daily data. I would call it the daily. So here, a representation of the daily data of the different ASEAN markets from August all the way to the end of September. Now, of course, we need to look at the heartbeat. We're looking at those heartbeats during the weekend. So now we are seeing signs of life. Even, in some markets that occupancy is still very pressed, but on weekends, we are now seeing those growth, especially in those drive-by destinations. Now, speaking of drive-by destinations, when we look at Thailand, so we have compared Thailand over different markets, including a sub-market Hua Hin. Now, interestingly, with Hua Hin, which is about 2-3 hours away from Bangkok, the convenience of having that drive-by destination has really pushed the demand for that specific sub-market. Now we are seeing on weekends, they even reached up to 96% occupancy level. So that is good. However, those that markets whereby you need to fly still remains at challenging occupancy levels. Now let's go to Malaysia. As I mentioned earlier, Malaysia is one of a contender for domestic growth. We're seeing that because when we compare Johor Bahru, Melaka, all the way to Penang, so from the data from June all the way to the end of September, now we're really looking at a slow growth of occupancy. The winner here would be Melaka. We have seen that occupancy is reaching almost 60%. And well, Melaka is also about 2 to 3 hours away from Kuala Lumpur. Now, Penang is also growing. We have seen that Johor Bahru, which is further closer to Singapore, is also growing quite well in terms of occupancy levels towards the end of September. However, if you're looking at, is Malaysia out of the woods? No, it's still a long way to go. Just like as Mario has mentioned earlier, with so much uncertainty, even if we're seeing some growth in the Malaysian market, everyone is still not out of the woods, even for the rest of the ASEAN market. Now, let's look at Indonesia, where another market which is strong with domestics. So comparing Bandung, Medan, Bali, and Yogyakarta, now here, the 3 buckets for Bandung and Yogyakarta, we're really seeing that better performance for the locals. It's really driven by the locals. However, for Bali, which is really quite pressed in terms of occupancy, because most of the hotels are closed as well, and they're also very heavily reliant on international tourism. Now, of course, when we look and compare with the different markets in Southeast Asia, looking at occupancy, and just at this snippet of a time frame from September 26th compared to last year, occupancy is really down. We even looked at the rates. How are the rates? Interestingly, the Indochina market has kind of tried to keep the rates. So Myanmar, Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, and Cambodia has kind of limited the slowing down of the rates. However, if you look at Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, and even Singapore, we have seen big sacrifices on the rate. Of course, that is a strategy for those markets. And for example, Singapore, such a big drop in terms of ADR growth at that specific point in time in September, meaning because they have made sacrifices because most of the hotels are also used as a quarantine facility, meaning it is negotiated rates. Now, we're not really surprised when we looked at the profitability during restrictions and regulations. The RevPAR, if we would compare that at the same time as last year in September, majority are really down, hovering in negative 70 to 76% of drop in terms of RevPAR levels. Now, let's talk about the risk. Of course, everyone is looking at the demand levels. When is the demand coming in? When is travel coming in, or the borders going to open up? But there are so many things that you need to factor in, especially if you're budgeting or, looking at how are you going to do your strategies for next year, for 2021. But let me point out the other risks to consider, because you might forget to take this in consideration. there is a risk of new supply coming into the Vietnamese market. Of course, as Mauro has mentioned, there are deferred projects. So, but still, they are already in the pipeline. So this is a huge risk, and do not forget that Vietnam is one of the healthiest pipeline in the region. So these are your potential challenges if you are already operating a hotel. That means when this new supply come in, and then when the demand is coming in, so there's more pressures when it comes to going back to 2019 levels. Now, as a recap, what we have seen so far is really because a lot of borders are still closed, but there are some countries that are slowly opening, for example. But domestic is really driving, not only for China, but we have seen that for Indonesia and Malaysia. Especially for markets where there's a big domestic market, then that will be very helpful to drive and push more occupancy into your market. Now, of course, accessibility is a huge thing. Drive-by destinations are good because it's easier to drive rather than to fly. And do watch out for new supply, as I mentioned. Do factor them into your strategies for next year. Don't forget about them. Now, for recovery tools, what I can share you coming from a data company, please use available data in your market. And if you can look at the daily data, that's really, really good so that you can compare between your weekend and also your weekdays. So in a nutshell, everyone in Asia Pacific are, struggling. We're not out of the woods, but it may be a long way to go. But we don't know. So hopefully when the borders are open and start to ease up, then we are going to see a much more better demand for hotel rooms. Thank you very much. And if you got question, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Vanity. Just wait a second. Just wait for a second. I just want to ask if anybody in the room would have a question for you, because we're now connecting directly with her. If you have any question, Mauro?
The question is primarily, we have many of the countries there is a third wave of COVID-19 currently coming along. What are the trends as of now featuring in these markets, and what are the future looking like?
Vanity, can you get a question?
The second question, what does the future look like?
What's
the first question again?
The first question is, there are many countries right now in Southeast Asia. Vietnam has been lucky, but there are phase 3 happening with COVID-19 there. So what is happening right now in these places, and how are we looking at the future there?
Okay, so one way to look at it, because there's still, a lot of restrictions on travel, and many countries are just working on their own. Even Thailand, for example, they're still very, very conservative before they allow international tourists to come in. They were in the news that they wanted to take in Chinese going to Phuket, but there's so many levels of restrictions, so many hassle for us to travel. So if we would even consider or entice people to travel, can you imagine they need to get COVID tests, they need to get some quarantine, and I think even for Thailand, if we look at Thailand, for them to be able to travel to Thailand is they need to even show 6 months of a bank statement. So if you would go to Singapore, you need to get, I think, they have opened some green lanes. So for example, for Australia and also for Vietnam. So I think there will be lesser restrictions, but still you need to get tested. So there's a lot of hassle. We have to wait for the vaccine, I guess, and then for people to be confident in traveling. Now, what's our expectation? I mean, what do we see in the future for the hospitality industry? Well, in some markets, we have created a forecast. Unfortunately, for Vietnam, yes, Vietnam, we have some data, but we can't create a forecast yet. We can customize something, but we're not, what is available currently is that for only key markets. We needed to get the data. We needed to get all those daily data. To be honest, some of the things that we are rolling out from the company so that we can impart more insights for you would be forward insights. But it's a slow process, and we're doing it from market to market. And hopefully the next time we can share that over to you. But for me personally, I think we still have to be cautious, with all those lockdowns. And the situation is still very fragile. just a few cases will probably bring in, another lockdown or restrictions in the market. So just be careful, and safety obviously is key before we can really entice more demand for the hotel industry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fenady. Because we have time for one question. If anybody have over there, please, in the corner.
Hi, Fenady, very quick one. So far, the STR data which we refer to are historical. I do
Yes.
know that there's a forward star which is coming up, but what has been the response from the hotels? Because the forward star is not subscribed by other hotels, it doesn't make sense. So far you have been reaching out to a lot of hotels. What has been the response yet?
Okay, now that is, I'm very excited always to talk about the Forward Star. In other markets, for example, in Australia, it's already been rolled out. So we've even have seen, a very the actual data for example, for Australian markets. For Southeast Asia, we're working on Bangkok. We're planning to open Bangkok, hopefully in the next by next month or so, and then also for Singapore market. We would love to open for Vietnam market, but we need to get the support of all the hotels, because this will help you, because it will really give you your business on the books up to 365, your occupancy on the books up to 365 days. You're going to see your market demand and even cancellation. So for example, something happens and you immediately see a lot of cancellation. You can see the pickup report, showing some negative numbers. So it's really, really with the help of the hoteliers. So if you guys are also interested to get this open in Vietnam, we'll be happy to do this, but it works both ways. We can just create the report and show you all this without the support of the hotels, because the data submission needs to be done weekly.
Thanks.
Thank you, Fenady. Maury?
Thank you.
Yes, I want one more, Fanny. Can you hear me?
Yes, clear.
Let's say I'm an hotel now. I want to capture the local market. I drop my rate by 50%. How long will it take me to get back there? Will be months? Will be years? What's your best projection on the recovery of the rate?
Okay. Well, at STR, we're not allowed to make comments on the strategies if you would do that. However, one of the benchmarking ways in order to arm yourself or get yourself an insight of how far you are against your competitors. So if you're dropping your rates, it's good to always have an insight of what your competitors are doing. So always look at the daily numbers, and from there, you check whether that is really enticing your guest or not. We can't really say that if you drop your rate, you're going to create demand. So it's hard to say. Coming from the learnings from Thailand about in 2015, they held on to the rates. There were a drop of occupancy because of their coup d'etat. They held on to the rates, but that's a different scenario. For a property, now we're on a different crisis. So always look at the daily data and do your strategies based on the numbers. You can always test, you can analyze. After doing that strategy, you implement and always do a cross-check if that works for you. And from there, that's how benchmarking can really help you and see if you're really close or beating your competitors.
Thank you very much, Fenady. Please stay safe and healthy. And I'll see you soon in Vietnam. Thank you.
Thank you. I miss you all. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Well, the pandemic has a huge impact on the hospitality industry. And now let's meet up with the hospitality frontline who are facing with this challenging situation every single day. So for that, please be introduced the moderator of the operational panel discussion, Mr. James Young, Vice President, Resource Planning and Development, WMC Group. Mr. James, the stage is yours.
Afternoon. Very nice to be back in familiar surroundings. And Mauro, thank you very much for the invitation. In March, somebody sent me a cartoon saying, you remember the film Titanic? And you remember the band playing as the Titanic sank? Well, that's the hospitality industry in this global COVID situation. And Mauro's analogy of holding our breath, I think, was a very good one, because we've been holding our breath for a long time. But we're very fortunate to be here in Vietnam today. And I'd like to introduce our panel to discuss a few points, but in no particular order of age or seniority. Could I start? Mr. Dushant, country head, Vietnam and Thailand for OYO, please. And Morgan, director of rooms at the Caravel Hotel. And Ignacio, Senior Director of Operations Asia Pacific for Melia Hotels International. Thank you very much. And Craig Douglas, Chief Operating Officer of the Grand Ho Tram Resort and Casino. And last but by no means least, Douglas Loudon, Partner of Hotel Asset Management Department at Savills Hotels, please. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And I think lots of questions, I'm sure, but maybe it's best to just start by giving us a quick overview of how things are at the moment. Ignacio, maybe you'd like to start.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. And first of all, I'm very, very happy to be here. I think it's a good news that we can welcome more than 300-400 people. So we wish to do this in Indonesia or Malaysia, and we are not able to do it. So I think we have to congratulate ourselves to be here and spend some time together. I don't know how much you know about Melia Hotels. We call ourselves a family international company. Why family? Because the founder of the company, he's in fact the chairman of the company, and his son is the CEO, right? So the family still control more than 50% of the company, which make our company different maybe to other companies. We got to Vietnam a long time ago, 25 years ago, opening our flagship Melia Hanoi, and we were very quiet for an important number of years. Then we opened Melia Da Nang, and after Melia Da Nang, with other countries focused as well, my company very focused traditionally in the south of Europe and the Caribbean, especially in countries like Cuba, Dominican Republic, and Mexico. We decided to put the focus in Vietnam and the Southeast Asia. We are running right now 8 hotels, and we plan to open about 9 hotels in the next 3 years in different locations. Let me start with some good news, right? Because I think it's time to, the good news is not only coming from China, where definitely we are running 6 hotels with already occupancy that more than 75% of occupancy, and some hotels giving GOP of 40%. And so we are doing budget in China, just looking at 2019, and when we are looking at budget in Bali or Koh Samui, the film is completely different. But we have good news as well here in Vietnam. So we have Melia Ho Tram, which is a beautiful resort, 2 hours driving distance from Saigon, where it was interesting to see how we managed this crisis, you know, because we were, at the same time, we were closing hotels in China. Then when we were opening hotels in Vietnam, then we started closing in hotels in Bali, etc., etc. But Melia Ho Tram was there, even in the worst, in March, February. The hotel kept occupancy of about 25% overall, and some weekends even 50, 70%, for sure. I mean, controlling having all the protocols on site, etc., etc. But we were running like two speeds, you know, closing hotels and then having hotels like Melia Hotran with high occupancy, right? But not only Melia Hotran, as well Melia Babi is as well a beautiful mountain retreat hotel close to Hanoi. Actually already doing 50-60% of occupancy, weekends full. And Phu Quoc, traditionally as well focused in overseas market, especially in winter. But when we reopened in May, the hotel in May did a 55% of occupancy. And June, July, we got to 70%, 60-70% until the Da Nang case, all right? So it's not only bad news, we have as well good news to share, all right?
Well, that's great. I think we should give Ignacio a round of applause for some good news. Morgan, how are things going in Ho Chi Minh City?
Wonderful. Record numbers this year.
Yeah, a bit of a zoo out there. Yeah.
Well, as everyone knows, city hotels, we are suffering. We were planning for a much better year this year, especially at Caravel. We just finished a comprehensive renovation of all the rooms and meeting space. And this came around. What do you do about it? You can't create demand. Right now, mitigate your risks, protect your brand, look after your guests, look after your owners, and try to get through this year. Hopefully Q3, Q4 next year, looking more positive. We'll see what happens during the elections in the US in November. I think after the inauguration, that will have an effect on international travel. It's not that the US sets the tone for the world, but it does help other people open up. Let's see how that goes this year.
Okay, thank you. Dushyant, with your many different business models, how are things going for Oyo?
So let me very briefly give a background of Oyo Hotels and Homes, if you guys are not aware of. We're one of the largest small, medium hotel franchises around the world. In terms of the number of rooms, we're definitely one in the top 10. World's largest hotel rooms, Oyo. And what we have done, especially during this time, we have presence across 80 countries. Speaking specifically about Vietnam, we have about 450 hotel partners that we work very, very closely, spread across 15 cities. So we've coverage across all the cities. And especially in this pandemic, it has hit everybody really, really hard, including us. So there is no sort of outgrowing that fact. But what has really been strategic and very important for us is the three strong pillars. One, the customers, the strength of our relationship of our customers, of our hotel partners, and the technology backbone. We strongly believe that the technology backbone that we have is very, very important and even critical during this time to navigate us through this crisis. And that's where we are actually doubling down our bets on technology and really the core, going back to the core, really doubling down on the bet around technology and activating all sorts of models and everything that we can really find out during this time. And we have been able to at least recover, especially if considering that Oyo app has been the fastest recovery that we have seen, has been on Oyo app amongst all the other channels that our hotels are listed on. So that's been a strong signal. Focusing on technology and operational efficiency is going to be the key driver, and that's what we strongly believe. And our focus is going to be around that in the next 6 months to 1 year to come.
Okay, thank you. Now, I don't want to say this end of the table, there's a lot of experience, especially in Vietnam. Craig, how are things going at the drive-by destination, as it were, of choice for many people?
Yeah, look, actually, being based in Ho Tram, we're quite fortunate in the current situation to be within a drive market. I think that's quite obvious. And the casino's been doing okay as well, on the casino floor and also in the hotel and the golf course part of the whole complex. Is considering the current market has been doing quite well, all things considered. you know, and so we've been quite fortunate in that. We push on, we do a lot of work to hit the domestic market, but, you know, obviously the domestic market and the local expatriate market are the only markets everyone's got at the moment. So you know, we're quite fortunate to be in that situation. Lodgis, the owning company, which I'm also involved with from an asset management perspective, we own the Fusion Hotel Group and also involved in the Sofitel Metropole in Hanoi. You know, that's a different, some of those locations are a little bit more challenging. You know, look in Hanoi, for example. Hanoi, being the city hotel, is a little generally struggling a little bit more than some of the immediate drive destinations from the two capitals. So, but yeah, all in all, in the casino, we're doing, you know, all things considered, it's, you know, we don't take it for granted at the moment. You know, day by day, week by week, month by month, and you keep pushing on. But at the moment, things are, you know, we're keeping our head above water.
Well, that's good to hear. So, Douglas, from your vantage point, how do you see things as they are at the moment?
In terms of full disclosure, when it comes to hotels, I'm a glass half empty type of guy. So even when they're at 100%, there's still an opportunity to make some money somewhere. And Mauro told me to be very upbeat. So just give me a moment while I go to my happy place. We're doing okay. We're certainly doing a lot better than a lot of other destinations in the region. I have hotel assets in Cambodia, in the Philippines, in Thailand, and it's difficult. But we are fortunate here in Vietnam that we've got through COVID better than most, and that we have a pretty buoyant domestic market, which I think for some hotels didn't even realize it existed. They were heavily dependent on inbound traffic. So yes, the fundamentals are good. It's a challenge. I think we're managing our way through it. Let's get rid of 2020 and move on.
Yeah, I think everyone in the room would agree with that sentiment. Dushan, you mentioned technology and the pickup on your app, and I think this is one thing McKinsey was saying, that COVID has accelerated the adaptation of technology in general. As operators, what changes are you seeing, and what changes are you going to need to make in your business model going forward?
Absolutely. I think technology is going to be the key, and especially innovation in the hotel space. I think that's going to be really key in the recoveries that's going to come. So to answer your question, I would definitely like to highlight that what we have seen, especially in Southeast Asia, is that people are not experimenting a lot more. By that, what I mean is 70% of our customers are actually repeat customers. And business travelers that have started traveling, they're staying at the same place. They're very aware of. They know that they can have a safe, hygienic environment, and they repeat. So repeat customers has really increased, especially in Southeast Asia. That's a very clear trend. Second trend that we see is policies. So we've made our apps and very, very flexible policies around booking to accommodate the business travelers, especially in these uncertain times. And they need all the help that they can from a flexible approach, especially when it comes to booking flexibility. Second, what we also do see is that groups and the business delegation tends to be very, very small, and they're very small now. So that's a small, secure, safe space is what people want in these times. And we started a new program, and this was all driven because what we saw in data, and we started sanitized stay. So we've come up with a complete standard operating procedure for small and medium-sized businesses on how to hygienically make sure that the customers are safe, the staff stay safe, and we have an entire very, very detailed standard operating procedure laid out, and we mark those hotels as sanitized stays to ensure that we get the right travelers, and we are able to really capture the demand even in these lean times.
Yeah, thank you. I think it is an interesting point, actually, when you talk about small groups. Certainly, I've read elsewhere that big ballrooms like this, which were traditionally seen as a huge asset, and I think it's an interesting one, not for this panel, but for future discussion, is hotel development going to change because of COVID? So I think one of the other panels can discuss that a bit more. You mentioned hygiene. Morgan, what are you doing at an operational level to assure guests from a hygiene point of view?
See, that's exactly the question. You can do everything operationally perfect. It's hygienic, it's clean, but how do you communicate it to your guests? Do you want it to be in your face, where people are worried when they walk in because it's too much? Do you want it to be subtle? When they walk in, they feel comfortable. For me, it's very much about allaying fears, not just as a hotel, but also as a destination. People are afraid of traveling. People are afraid of going to certain areas. People are afraid of getting on an airplane, right? We need to be making hygiene communicated where it allays those fears to increase the travel again and open things up.
Okay. It's, I think what's interesting to see is the difference between branded hotels and individual properties and how they are approaching the issue. Ignacio, from Milia's point of view, how are you addressing the hygiene question from a global perspective?
Yeah, as we are running hotels in different parts of the world, the company decided to create a program called Stay Safe with Melia. So in collaboration with Bureau Veritas in Europe, this program has been a huge amount of hours and work since the virus started in China. So we were lucky to have hotels in China. So when everything started, we created this program, and then we amplified to the rest of the countries. With Bureau Veritas, what we are doing is at least 30% of our hotels in each division must be audited, all right? And then 100% of the hotels are audited by our global internal audit department, all right? So we have been very demanding implementing this program. It doesn't matter if it's in a third-tier city in Indonesia or it's in Barcelona, New York, all right? So that is guaranteeing us to standardize all the protocols worldwide. Yeah.
Okay. We are a very people-focused industry, of course, and I think all the operators, our passion is for people, and every operator globally has had to make some very painful decisions. Craig, can I just ask you, when it comes to cutting costs, what do you think? Is it a real saving in the long run when you're cutting costs because of an immediate issue? Or should you be trying to hold on for as long as possible because of the long-term damage that might do to your employer brand, to your business, whatever?
Give me the good question, didn't you?
I've got a good one for Douglas in a minute.
Look, I think there's no perfect solution, quite frankly, right? You can just do the best you can. At the end of the day, for us as a company, you're only as good, your business is only as good as the people that are working there, right? So you can't run like for example, the casino, 540 rooms with multiple food and beverage outlets, a casino that goes 24/7. You can't do that with two people, obviously, right? Yep. There's a lot of human element to the business. So for us, like we sort of, you have to, I think, make some adjustment. I don't think there's any question about that, especially to survive. There's a lot of responsibility if you're protecting the interests of the people working with you. You're protecting the interests of the shareholders, right, that have injected millions and millions of dollars into a business that obviously have, some sort of debt to pay unless they're paid cash, which is highly unlikely in this day and age. So it's a balancing act, and I'm trying to skirt around the exact, I know the exact answer, but I think, look, you have to adjust. I think everyone in any hospitality business globally is having to adjust to a certain degree, and each business based on the location and the sort of business levels you're able to obtain. Like I was mentioning before, Ho Tram has certainly probably been the least affected in the entire country. I think the Melia and the casino, to a certain extent, are in a little bit of a bubble down there, especially on getting the Friday, Sunday business. But if you're in a city hotel, it's a completely different situation, right? The city hotels certainly are finding it a bit more challenging, so they've probably had to do a lot more adjustment in terms of maybe reducing manpower, working with vendors to try and balance that out as well. Things like that. So you're looking at it from every angle. But again, I think it just depends on the business. We've certainly made some adjustments, I think, in all areas. But we try and keep the ball moving as well as we can.
Yeah. Douglas, thank you, Craig. Douglas, leading on from that a little bit, how do you think the owner-operator relationship has changed because of COVID?
Oh, that was a good one, yeah. I think the relationships are still there. I mean, obviously, we're all in this together. The owners are in many cases hurting. The operators are also doing it tough right now. Obviously, their fee income is significantly reduced. Certainly in the hotels I've been involved in, the owners and the operators are working closely together to do whatever they can to reduce costs and to try and sort of bring things in line. I do sort of feel that the operators obviously want to get back to normal as quick as possible. The owners are more on the point, well, let's hold off until we can see some real green shoots coming through and that borders are open, etc. So people want to get back to full payroll as soon as they can, etc., for those on reduced payroll. So there is a little bit of to and fro on that side.
Yeah. Do you think the asset-light model practiced by many international companies, has it had its day due to COVID?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, the asset-light model is great when you've got fantastic fee income coming in from multiple hotels all over the world. With this sort of global crisis, yes. Big brands, the Intercontinentals, the Marriotts, etc., are struggling now because their cash flow is seriously impacted.
Yeah. Ignacio, I don't want to put you on the spot, moving straight to an operator after that, but Financial Times ran an article last week talking about the demise of business travel, which for most major brands is a key source of revenue generation. Do you think business travel will ever return to pre-COVID levels?
Yeah, well, I think we have to see this case by case, country by country, location by location. We are, as many people in this room, we are working in the 2021 budget with different assumptions. So in China, as I said before, it's nothing very different to 2019, but in places like Bali, we don't expect to recover until fourth quarter 2021, right? So I would say we better go place by place and location by location. Definitely, what we see is we are increasing our direct channels. Our Melia.com, is generating worldwide 70% of the revenues, right? So that's a good news for the company. This morning, for example, I was talking to one of, our flagship in China, and the GM was telling me, I was asking, what is the difference between, now to 6 or 9 months ago before the COVID-19? And in terms of segmentation, I think maybe something we need to see that could happen, something different, something very similar, in Vietnam, is that he was telling me, well, corporate is definitely decreasing. OTAs and direct channels are, moving up. Wedding business is doing extremely good again. So people are coming back to, celebrate and small events and big events. And And then operationally speaking, our hotels, what we are seeing is that labor cost is which is one of the headache. We are decreasing, significantly in China, right? So hotels that we were having like 35% of labor costs, now we are running with 28, right? Because the staff is becoming more multitask. Okay, so due to the COVID-19, we minimize the labor cost impact.
Morgan, if I could just pick that up. Obviously, labor is such a huge factor in our business. In this current situation, how are you remaining an employer of choice? And what advice would you give to everyone here?
You're not going to be able to do it with increasing salary levels at the moment. You're not going to be able to do it with going to 100% salaries. It is very much how you treat people at the moment. Keeping morale up, keeping motivation up, job enlargement, job combination. However, whatever efficiencies and optimizations we get from this, the knee-jerk reaction upon some recovery from the operator is to go back to normal. We shouldn't. Keep the optimities, keep the efficiencies. Why should we return these cost savings when we haven't fully recovered and our owners haven't got all their money back? But right now, very much it's keeping morale up in hotels, right? People are being paid less and guests are still expecting the same service.
Yeah. And I think that is a very interesting point. Guests are still expecting us as operators to deliver the same experience. And I stress experience, as Mauro mentioned earlier. Craig, we talked about job combination, or Morgan mentioned that and so on. What's the opportunity for Vietnam here? We are all here as expatriates. And I always think that we are here helping Vietnam develop. Has COVID accelerated that development? From an employer point of view and a talent development point of view. With COVID, in Vietnam, because of the labor situation, has COVID helped to accelerate the development of local talent?
Yeah, I think yes. I think, obviously you look more in your backyard now than ever before, right? And because if you are looking to fill a position, if you're looking at expatriates, you're very limited from choice because obviously you can't get into the country as well. So, but also I think it's more about sustainability. We certainly in Ho Tram really sort of look to promote within, and a lot of our executive roles are filled with Vietnamese talent who do an excellent job, and we're encouraging that even more. And I think we're looking more into training, looking forward, really coaching potential executives that can grow into roles as well. And I think that's very important. I think this current climate has accelerated that because we are in Vietnam and the talent is growing month by month, not year by year, and the experience and the quality, and why not? And I think it's a good thing. It creates a sustainable environment, and I think that's, if anything, that's what this situation has made us look at. You've got to have a sustainable business model that is adaptable. Look at the moment, we were flying in July, and then obviously what happened in Da Nang? August went tanked completely for everybody. Didn't matter which location you're in. So, yeah, to answer your question, and I think, and you look at the Vietnamese, the local talents coming up through the executive ranks, more GMs coming on board, more director of F&Bs, all these key positions, and I think that's just going to increase, and it has accelerated that, I think.
Okay. Dushyant, are operators still providing value for money?
Absolutely. And I think
I thought you might say
one. So I think at
Just
least for
coming to
us,
you in a minute.
in the segment that we operate in, what we do see, as I mentioned earlier as well, that technology is going to be the core driving force, especially for a sustainable recovery. And what I mean by technology, I gave one example around the policies that we are implementing. But what we are also doing is we are actually understanding, especially in the new normal, which are the destinations which are going to be much more accessible. How many people fit in the, for example, like how many people fit in the car, 4 people groups going to 1 hour outside of the city. And these are where we need to really ramp up in terms of our supply. And so some of these are already put in place. So technology is driving our supply acquisition. Technology is driving customization of CRM by actually identifying potential travelers, whether business or leisure, where they would go and what kind of hotel would they stay in. So we are actually implementing and executing as we speak on all of these fronts, and the benefit of this directly goes to the asset owners because they're able to maximize and monetize their assets much more. And what we've also seen is a shift from corporate travelers actually moving away from a very big inventory hotel to a smaller inventory hotel, and that puts us in a better spot. And we've already seen this happening, especially in China, where recovery is already a long way ahead compared to where Vietnam is. Vietnam currently, because of all international restrictions, we focus on the domestic travel, but even in this, taking the weekends out, we still see the maximum recovery coming from a Ho Chi Minh or a Hanoi, traditionally around the business aspects. So we are seeing technology as a lever in every single aspect, whether it's supply acquisition, customer demand, and monetizing, and maximizing the monetization of the asset for the asset owner. So we do strongly believe that we do provide value, even in these times, if not more.
So, Douglas, monetization of the asset. From your vantage point, would you like to comment? Counter that?
Yeah. Trump Biden debate here now, but I didn't interrupt. The owner-operator relationship has always been heavily in favor of the operator. The operator has an agreement that gives them carte blanche to run the hotel and have a lot of control, and the owner's left to pay all the bills. I think this whole COVID experience is going to hopefully give us a chance to rethink that relationship. I think there has to be a lot more pressure put on the operators saying, you're in charge of my asset, you've got to deliver. And if you don't deliver, I have the right to say goodbye. So I think 25-year, 30-year management contracts might become a thing of the past. I think franchising is going to become a far more common practice, certainly here in Asia. It's common in Europe, it's common in the US, but I think franchising is going to be something more commonly used by owners here.
Yeah. Certainly, I think franchising, and from my experience in the Middle East and talking to colleagues in the Middle East, many of the major hotels there are moving towards a franchise model already, and that's been accelerated by the COVID situation. We haven't touched yet on the sharing economy and the prospects for the likes of Airbnb, which in many destinations was a significant competitor. Dushyant, as an exponent of the sharing economy, is there a future for the likes of Airbnb?
I think one of the trends that does support us is actually, again, what we are seeing, especially for our customer segment, is a move towards smaller and independent hotels, which very less inventory. We are actually seeing less than 10-room hotels, and people really pushing in demand through that, as long as they have a hygienic stay. So I do see...
So how would, sorry, I'm being a moderator, not Donald Trump. How are those small hotels going to be able to guarantee the hygiene?
So we have put in place a very detailed standard operating procedure where we are actually pushing and a majority of our hotels now do have a sanitized stay mark that we are actually providing certification around the entire SOP if it's followed, which provides a very hygienic stay. And just to give you some numbers to support it, actually what we've seen is that almost a 1.8 times RevPAR from our sanitized stay properties, and that's at the booking time on how the customers are actually making that decision. So which is supporting our view of actually these certifications, especially in the very, very small and independent hotels in the unbranded segment. And this is really driving that value.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, any of you like to comment on that? Because, I mean, Morgan, for example, yes.
Yeah.
If 10 different hotels are offering the same sanitization, what is the value add to the consumer?
No, well, I completely...
I mean, if you have a 10 room, 300 room, 400 room, 500 room, what is the consumer psychology on the purchase? So for me, it's also depending on the individual and the markets, right? Would you feel comfortable staying at a 1,000-room hotel at the moment?
I think there's a good chance.
So it really depends, right? And that's going to affect development in the future also, right? Do you really want to put up a 1,000-room hotel at the moment? Sorry, Craig.
No, I think just on that, you know, there is some sort of, you know, if you're staying in a certain property with a certain reputation and a certain brand, potentially, there becomes potentially a comfort factor with that, right? That, okay, things are being done right, the hygiene's being done right, rooms being cleaned right, et cetera, right? So I think it's, you know, to me, you know, Airbnb, you know, everyone has short memories, right? Unfortunately, at the end of the day, once we get out the other side, you know, a year, two down the track, it'll all be back to normal. So they're certainly not going to die. I think there's, as to the speed in which they sort of ramp up post-COVID, well, that's, you know, that's an unknown. I think no one has any idea in the industry on how fast it's going to pick up, but it's certainly not gone. I think it'll certainly recover.
Yeah. I think one of the key learnings of this year is that forecasting what is going to happen is a pretty difficult thing to do, if not impossible. Do we have time for some question from the floor?
I think we have time for one question.
One question. Oh, it better be a good one. Sir.
Are you serious? Are you really?
You can forget the microphone.
Let me get the crystal ball out and just start waving around.
No, so it's because I've been having massive debates with my headquarters on this. Everybody is either, because I only three scenes which going to happen. Either we can show growth, degrowth. Though people wanted to be back to 2019, I don't find any logic on or any science whether we ever can come back to that numbers. What is your take across the board?
Well, maybe, sorry, you fire away.
Oh, I think, I don't know what everyone else is doing, but all the hotels we're involved with, you know, we're doing multiple scenarios.
Yep.
So this has been the hardest, longest budgeting process in the history, I think, at the moment. With shareholder, you know, management companies. I know the guy, because Hotram, when we rebrand, is going to be a franchise on that as well. But the management company guys, I know the GMs have been doing countless amount of budgets for their head office. Then you got the shareholders that want a different scenario and all that sort of thing. So, but to answer your question, look, we're doing several scenarios, and then we're just going to adapt when we do those. You know, it could be a partial recovery midway through. And then maybe not recovering for the whole year, and then maybe an earlier recovery sort of in the second quarter. And it mixes with, like, when you're budgeting for us, it's going to be sort of Asian segments, how it all ramps up. So obviously the Asian market, I think, will recover first when things happen, is our opinion.
So is it growth from 2020 or still flat?
Sorry?
Is it going to be growing from 2020 or still flat?
No, 2021.
Will it be from the actual, are you showing growth Or are you keeping it flat?
Next year? It depends on the property, right? And it depends on your markets. Again, it's all, like I was saying before, it's all based on where you're located and your market segments, right? So use Ho Tram again, casino, it's Asian business and domestic market. The Western market is very, very limited for us down there. So we're showing a little bit of growth down there. That's our plan, should the sort of open, but then other city hotels are a little bit less because they rely more on the business sector and the Western leisure, like US market or something like that.
Just a quick note of
Yes.
that.
Thank you, Chris.
The question you're asking is, and the answer you're looking for is, what's your debt service next year? What do you have to tell the bank? If you need to refinance next year, and you want to negotiate down, then you paint the rosier picture, and then you refinance, and the bank resyndicates the debt, right? So it depends what you have to tell your debtors. Different way of putting it.
Douglas or Ignacio?
Just on the budgeting point, I mean, we instructed the hotels we're involved with to zero base their budgets, you know, to not sort of try and take 2019 actuals and I'll work it out and I'll percentage off this. It just start again, start from zero, rebuild a new budget on an entirely new set of costs. It's been interesting that the big brands are still working on the same budget schedule. Most of the big brands have actually finished their budgets for next year. And I really just have no idea what's coming when they're going to start presenting these budgets. But yeah, like Craig, we told everyone to put together 3 scenarios. We also told the hotels, leave it as late as possible. If we have to be putting a budget together in January, the longer that we can wait, and hopefully there'll be some international flights coming in and there'll be some better signs of lift coming into the destinations, we can plan better for the future. But right now, someone producing a budget that was sort of cast in July or August for next year is it's a waste of time.
Yeah. Ignacio.
No, in our case, and to answer your question, I mean, next year is definitely a different exercise. But we are doing 2 things different compared to other years. We rely more in our senior general managers. We are assigning 1 GM per country to help us, you know, hotel by hotel. But we definitely have to trust on our GM more than ever. There is no choice. And we are talking earlier and more with our owner reps, and we are opening conversation. We are asking, what do you think, all right? Because at the end, there are a lot of question marks. So more than ever, we have to have one message to the hotel team, not just 2 messages, one from the owner and one from the management company, right?
Okay, thank you. How are we doing for time? Have we got time for a little more, or should we shut up?
If you have anything to ask your team of experts.
Well, I just very quickly, in 30 seconds or less, can you, and sorry, Mara, I think we'll just have to hold that conversation to the coffee break. 30 seconds or less, your predictions for the next 3 years. Let's say not 2021.
Based on what we have looked at data, what we do see that recovery is going to happen. It's just about time, as most of us have agreed on how 2021 is going to be, is to keep it really flexible and be very, very, very fast to any changes in the environment that we see. And I think the hotels and the operators, whoever is going to be able to do it in the best fashion way, keeping it very flexible and really adapting to change and uncertainty, is going to come out.
30 seconds, Morgan.
I think there's going to be a dynamic shift in revenue management. In the past, we moved from yield to revenue. I think we're going to move from revenue to profit management, a combination of cost control and revenue management, micro-segmenting your room categories to maximize profit in the next 3 years. People have been talking about it for a few years. Some hotel chains have experimented, but nobody's really executed because times were good. Times are not so good now, so it's time to look at it.
It's a good point. Ignacio.
It depends on the country. I think I've been living in China for 10 years before. I think we are confident China is going to do, even in some cities, better numbers than 2019. Depend on the control of the pandemic. more conservative definitely for Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Thailand, right? But Vietnam, especially in resort destination, we plan to have a good second semester in 2021.
Okay, good, great.
My forecast is that I think the next 6 months to 9 months will still be a little bit tough. And then when I think we'll start to see things hopefully recover. Obviously, one contributing factor to all this is the airlines need to get going once things start getting back to normal, right? And their airlift needs to match what it was before to drive numbers in. So I think the second half of next year I think we'll see some improvement early next year to a certain degree, but second half next year should pick up a little bit more, and then I think 2022 will hit the go button again, I think.
Thank you. Douglas?
Donald Trump goes to jail.
That's what I'm looking for. That's the kind of bold prediction.
Certainly, definitely, that's the one I'm looking for. Look, Mario talked before about 2024 as being the sort of target date, and I do agree. I think it's going to take that long to go back to 2019 levels. Bearing in mind also here in Vietnam, we've had a lot of capacity just came online as COVID hit, and we've still got to get back to where we were, absorb that capacity, and continue to build.
It's actually, I know Emirates Airlines, it's exactly that prediction. Their forecast is 2024. So I think Myro has a question.
No, I don't have, but we have a question from our online audience for you, James. Why there are not female in the panel?
Sorry? Why are there no female on the panel? It's a very good question.
That's why I'm coming
So
up.
I promise that next year you'll bring a bit more
I would
variety.
I completely agree, because the last thing we want to have is a mammal. But I would refer back to Savills, who organized the panel. And please, it would be very, very good to have that. And I think also as operators, we touched on the development of local talent. I'm conscious that we're all sitting here as expatriates.
I promise you on the next event we'll do all female one. Nguyen, maybe you'll moderate. Yeah, women in hospitality. That's the new one.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody. Nguyen, please.
Please. Thank you very much,
Thank
gentlemen.
you, the panelists.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we are going to have many other interesting sections, but before that, we are going to have a tea break. And to the online audience, we will be back in 10 minutes. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mid-Expert Conference. I now invite on stage Mr. Ken Atkinson, Vice Chairman of Vietnam Tourism Board Advisory. He will have a presentation on the key economic data, and he will then moderate a panel discussion with the leading Vietnamese developer, talking about the future of the market. Please welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. The problem of speaking after the coffee break is half the people either go home or don't bother to come back. So
No, Ken, they're still outside having a drink, so they can't.
So I've got one of the easier starts to my presentation because I'm going to talk a bit about the economy and what's happened in the first 8 months of the year, which is fact, not fiction, and move on from there. So look at also look at a forecast for 2020, some projections which are real crystal ball for 21, and the impact of the current situation on hospitality, real estate, and the outlook for 21. So starting with 2020, I've got the comparative figures up there for 2019, which I think everybody would be familiar with. The economy has proved to be quite resilient in the first 8 months of this year, and that's also evidenced by the figures that I just saw yesterday evening for September. So we've got positive GDP growth, we've got a positive growth in exports year on year, we have a relatively high for Vietnam trade surplus, and FDI has held up extremely well under the circumstances when we think that investors and business people have been unable to travel into Vietnam. I think the figure for September, FDI is down about 4% year on year, which is an extremely good performance. Credit growth, as one might expect, has been very low, although the figures I'm reading would indicate that actually for the whole year, that's likely to be closer to 10 to 12%. If that's true, that means banks are going to be lending quite a bit more money in the last 4 months. We've got record foreign exchange reserves, currently at about 92 billion, and estimated forecast for the end of the year is 100 billion. It looks a lot better than it did, but in terms of the World Bank kind of safety ratio of reserves equaling 3 months imports, then it's still a little bit on the borderline. So, projections for 2021. GDP, there's a whole range of them, going from 6 to 6.5%, which is the government's forecast, to 8.1% from Goldman Sachs. I don't know where they got that number from. Maybe they're thinking of sending Donald Trump over here. God forbid. IMF 7%, World Bank 6.8%, and the Asia Development Bank 6.3%. And I say that Asia Development Bank are always the most conservative of those bilateral agencies. Now I move into my forecasts. I would expect exports next year to grow by at least 10% over this year's final number, partly because of the move in manufacturing that we're seeing, which will continue, and also the benefits starting to appear from particularly the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement. I would expect the trade surplus to shrink because I think part of the trade surplus has been that projects have slowed down a little bit, so the imports of capital equipment for factories has been slowed, and that's contributed to this year's surplus. FDI, I would expect to continue to increase, again, because of the movement out of China. But again, European companies and American companies looking to the Vietnam market. And I think it's also worth mentioning that I think part of this is confidence in Vietnam that's been created by the way that Vietnam has handled the pandemic, the way it's, with limited resources, has actually contained the spread of the pandemic, and the great system that we have in place, of course, for contact tracing, substitute monitoring, but contact tracing also has worked extremely well. I'd expect to see continuing growth in foreign exchange reserves, and also the containment of the inflation rate below 4%. So, what do we see in terms of the hospitality real estate? Well, my friends from Savills could probably tell it better than I can, but these are my observations. Many small properties are for sale, they've closed, and also we're seeing some high-end properties start to appear on the market. The problem is that sellers still believe they can get pre-COVID prices, and that is no longer a reality. I think my view is that from what I've been reading is that we should expect prices 20 to 30% below the pre-COVID levels. So again, in Vietnam we see this all the time, that sellers' expectations do not meet buyers' expectations. Distressed sales are not apparent, and I mentioned earlier I've been here 30 years, and I've been waiting to see a distressed asset on the market in the true sense of the word. So unless the banks really start to take possession and start to liquidate some of their inventory, I don't think we're really going to see too much in the way of real distressed assets. Certainly there is a lot of interest from overseas buyers, investors into property. I think that's mainly either property that's operational, or in normal times would be operational, or very close to completion. People are shying away from greenfield or brownfield, and also from condotels because of the lack of clarity around the regulations governing condotels. So my outlook for 2021. So business visitors to Vietnam, which is an integral part of the operations for the 4 or 5-star hotels, there is certainly pent-up demand. There's a lot of transactions that are holding, waiting for business people to come in here and actually kick the tires before they sign on the dotted line. There will, as I said, continue to be increased FDI and M&A activity. But I also, in line with one or two of the other speakers, expect to see a decrease in business travel. Companies will be looking to contain costs. Companies realize that they continue to function with the use of technology. And whilst it's always fun, or at least I always found it fun, jump on a plane and go fly somewhere for a meeting, half the time that is no longer necessary. So I would expect probably a 40 to 50% reduction in business travel as we come out of the COVID period. Domestic travel, of course, we know that that's quite resilient, although a lot of Vietnamese are still reluctant to jump on a plane, but as we've heard, they're happy to jump in their car or join a small group and travel to Ho Chi Minh or to Ha Long Bay from Hanoi. So whilst I expect we're not going to get to that 85 million domestic tourist level, I think 50 to 60 million, unless there is another outbreak, is quite realistic. In tourism, a lot of pent-up demand. There's surveys been done in China, and a lot of potential demand there, as there will be from Korea and Taiwan. But then it's a question of relaxing the quarantine restrictions for those countries. And I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that we will see some green lanes or travel bubbles, whatever you want to call them, for countries that have demonstrated the ability or not having had any community spread for 30 days, and with possibly limited quarantine conditions when they arrive here. I think, in a way, long haul ultimately will be less affected. But, of course, who wants to take anybody from Europe or the United States at the moment because of just their high levels of community spread and the high number of cases of COVID. I've mentioned the fact that I think Vietnam's reputation for managing COVID will put it in good stead. I don't think Vietnam gets enough international recognition on the media channels for what it's actually achieved, and I think the Vietnamese government needs to start working on a PR campaign of their own to highlight that. And interestingly, on Agoda, something I read a couple of days ago, Vietnam is the 4th most searched after destination currently of people looking and planning trips. So my pessimistic forecast for foreign visitors is 6 to 8 million compared to 18 million last year. And I think that would be assuming that there's some return to normality in terms of open borders and lowering of quarantine restrictions. The mid case, I would say, would 8 to 10. An optimistic would be 10 to 12, but I really feel that my forecast will be in that 6 to 8 million range. Just a word, I also represent Grant Thornton in Vietnam, a company that I founded back in 1993. It's a global auditing, accounting and advisory firm, and we're in 140 different countries around the world. Vietnam, we were the second firm to be licensed back in 1993, and the firm operates with 13 partners and achieved nearly 7 million in revenue in 2019. Thank you. So if I could invite my panel to come up, please.
Panel, they're waiting for you.
And if we could have the panel photographs up so everybody can sit under there. That's it. Okay. So if you'd like to come up and sit in front of your photograph.
Finally, we have a female on the panel.
I was going to say that. We asked Mr. Nguyen not to show up so we could get some gender equality into the proceedings. Right?
Okay.
Thank you. So I'll ask the panel if they would just take 1 minute each to introduce themselves. They can do it better than I can. So thank you. Ken.
Shall I start first?
Yes, please.
Hi everyone. My name is Nguyen. I'm in charge of the finance department in Novaland Group. In the past 3 years, we have been quite active in hospitality sector, and our major markets is in Phan Thiet and Ho Chi Minh, which is 1 to 2 hours drivable by car from Ho Chi Minh City.
Hi, my name is Nguyen. I'm an investment director at Savills Hospitality Holding. Savills was created in 2016 by Warburg Pincus, a private equity fund from New York, and Vina Capital. So we own a host of assets across Vietnam and Cambodia, such as the Sofitel Legend Metropole, the International Center, 2 Raffles hotels in Cambodia, Fusion Cam Ranh, and then the Grand Ho Chi Minh.
I have the mic here. Good afternoon. My name is Roland Svensson. I'm the CEO of Tnt Hospitality, which is a division of the Tnt Group, which is one of the largest multi-industry companies in Vietnam. We're now going into the hospitality business, and we have 10 hotels in the pipeline from north to south, and so a very exciting time for us at the moment. Next.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Xuân Thư from TMG. In TMG, there are 4 pillars of business, which is IVU, it's the online platform, and aviation. We have high-oil aviation, and travel business. We have brands Buffalo Tour before, and now we have exit from that business. We moved to new brand from Vivu Journey. And the last pillars is the hospitality. I'm from the hospitality pillars. We have 2 brands, Victoria Hotels with 7 hotels, 6 hotels in Vietnam and 1 in Laos. And another brand name is M brand, is Young Phan Kip Chen 3-star hotels across the country. And I'm very happy to join you on today.
Thanks.
It's okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Hannes. I work for Eurowindow Holding. We basically have real estate, construction material, and also financial investments in local banks, where I'm responsible for the asset management of all the real estate that we have. In the second role, I'm also a general director of Eurowindow Nha Trang, which is holding 2 of our resorts, Mövenpick and the Radisson Blu. And so today we're here to talk about hospitality.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Right. So I'm going to start with a few questions, and hopefully we'll also have time for questions from the audience. I'm going to ask each of the panelists in turn, just to, from a developer's perspective, what do you see the key challenges and opportunities going forward? So let's start that end this time, Hannes.
Yeah, opportunities going forward. We heard that a lot of times it's going to be difficult, right? And I'm afraid I haven't got any better news. But I think what people learned is, and we spoke about it very quickly before, how to streamline the operations. So they learned how to operate in a more challenging environment, which is good. And the Vietnamese market itself is actually very promising. We saw it with the numbers. We've got a very strong local demand, so it will really help. The question is probably not so much on the occupancy levels, it's more on the room rates, because the room rates are so-so, and it will be difficult to actually bring them up, right? And when we talk about what the future will bring and what the opportunities are, it's really not a question of how many people you're going to pump into hotels, it's more a question of what rates you're going to achieve to get your revenues. But definitely local traveling is a big opportunity. We will see Christmas coming. The expats have to go somewhere. New Year, Tnt will definitely help. And then hopefully we will see some easing on the travel restrictions second half of 2021. So there are opportunities there. It's just really hard work to get there.
Thank you. Bob?
So for DMG, if we say for the year 2020, 2021, sorry, we foresee that this will be the very challenging for us, and same goes for everybody, with a lot of uncertainty. But in terms of the opportunity for moving forward, we do believe that travel tourism will be back and grow globally as well as in Vietnam, thanks to the very good news on the mechanism to reopen borders. And also we do hope that there will be good news on the vaccine. So the second half for the 2021 can be very difficult to predict. However, we do see it's quite promising.
So I think people should be listening to that lead, bearing in mind that your CEO is a medical doctor, and he's obviously got some insights into that. But I think also you're starting development of at least a couple of projects now, right? And new projects in Hoi An.
Exactly. At the moment, we have postponed a few projects due to the current pandemic. But we will resume operating later on.
Okay, thank you. Roland?
At the moment, Tnt Hospitality, we're purely a developer, so we don't operate any hotel at the moment. So for us, and as I mentioned before, we have about 10 projects in the pipeline, quite advanced project. The biggest challenge is to review all these timelines to see how do we go forward. When do we see ourselves opening the hotels? How do we either slow down or speed up the project process? So that is something. And then also, as I said, we have 10 hotels. Do we fast track one hotel? Do we slow it down? So it's kind of a situation we're in now to review how we're going to do that. It's also to see, we're going into a lot of second and third tier cities. That's our strategy as we move forward. And so we also are now reviewing designs, master plans, layout plans, we're learning obviously from COVID, cost management and so forth. We now putting much more attention on back of the house planning, see how we can make it more efficient, etc. So we're going quite deep into that. And we have a strategic partnership with one international global hotel company who's going to manage all our hotels. I can't reveal at the moment who they are, but we're also working with them now to see, especially with the hard brands, are there any flexibility in the hard brands? Can we, as we know, they're very rigid standards, and some of it has a cost effect. So we see, is there any opportunities there to kind of control the cost a little bit better? In terms of opportunities, as a developer, it also gives us a chance to kind of slow down the process a little bit. We can more go into depth in our planning, control the design, control the project management a little bit more. The operators are always pushing us fast, try to open as soon as possible. So this gives us an opportunity to kind of have a more control over the development.
Thank you. Doc.
Yes, so in terms of challenges, I think the other folks have talked about that. Obviously, this has been, needless to say, a very challenging time for hotel owners. But I think I'd like to focus on the opportunity. Here there is an opportunity to look at operations, try to see where there are places where we can streamline operations, become more efficient. This is also a good time to look at renovation. If you have renovation plans that you have been putting off because the assets are doing well, so this could be a good time to look at that, because this is the best time. It doesn't affect your operation as much. And then obviously on the investment side, hopefully there could be certain attractive opportunities that we can look at to expand our investment.
Thank you. Jen?
I think for all Vietnamese enterprises, not including Novaland Group, then there's a risk and returns factor kicks in. But I have seen, because in Novaland we do buy and sell from other developers as well, so we haven't seen any slowdown or setbacks in terms of investment or development activities. The market is very, the Vietnamese developer look at the market differently in terms of rates and returns. The developers now, local developers now tend to go into a large scale integrated projects which have immediate cash flow and recurring portfolio combinations. So with that, they do slow down they do have some sort of financial stress tests in terms of development and investment, but they do not slow down in accelerating the developments of the business.
Thank you. So this question is aimed at the developers, Vo, Roland and Hannes, in terms of what do you see as the impact on future design and operations of city and resort hotels?
Well, it's a long question. I think you are going to see impacts on all aspects, right? Of course, obviously on the technical side, anything that will help you not to touch anything, like touchless checking in, your door opens without touching, just these things to help you to avoid any spread of any further viruses that are prone to come. But it's also something very obvious for your clients. They can see, oh, there's something new that's here to protect me. It makes them feel good. The more interesting thing, the more difficult thing is then during the hotel development, and we spoke about it very quickly before, these massive function halls. What are they good for if you can't have any conventions? And it's really a question of how modular can you design them? How easily can you break them up into smaller items? What kind of infrastructure do you have to support online conferences, for example? The same thing in the lobby, for example. You need to create areas where people are kind of separated, but they don't really want to have plexiglasses everywhere. You can put bookshelves in there, for example. But these are all things that are going to change the appearance of a hotel. And then in the fitting out period, for example, material that's easy to clean. Maybe not so many carpets, even though you need carpets to look nice. Material that's not porous, or material that's easy to clean, that doesn't absorb any liquids. So there will be a lot of, not one massive change, but many, many small changes in this direction. Other questions like what you're going to do with your buffets. Are they still going to be accepted by the guests that come? Maybe you have to increase your room services, and people are going to eat in the rooms, which means you need different tables, different chairs. What you're going to do with the gyms. Do you have gyms inside your room, or do you have very separated gyms? There's plenty of things to talk about, and I think we're just only at the very beginning to discuss these things, because they impact everything from your operations to how you present yourself to your target market. It's really a big topic.
Thank you. Well,
I think Hannes almost answered everything.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned previously, for us, we're also now focusing a lot on, for example, back of the house, to make it very efficient, to make it very compact. Looking a little bit on how you operate hotels in the US and Europe and Australia, because I strongly believe that we have to look at reducing. We know we have to reduce manpower. We know we have to multitasking, etc. And that's where also the back of the house comes into effect, to see where they're located, how we do it, how we can integrate, as well as in the front of the house. In terms of style and type of hotels, I think Mario mentioned in his introduction that lifestyle is becoming a very big thing, and we're developing a number of hotels in Hanoi, and we're doing it with very much a lifestyle concept. And I think that's also what's going to come very much, because we know that ecotourism, wellness, adventure, and so forth, it's probably where the direction the hospitality and hotel business is going. So a lot of the hotels now, we really work on making them destination hotels. F&B is going to play a very important part, more than before, especially in our boutique hotels. So we want to make sure that the location of the outlets, we want it to feel like they're standalone hotels. So I think that's where we're going very much in Tnt Hospitality at the moment.
Thank you. Well.
I just want to add in, if we talk about the architecture, I think the new trend for resort hotels in many places will tend to low-rise architecture, which is can be opened, and we can go for lifestyle like our panelist mentioned. And if we go for the high building in big city, it should have multi-function building. We can convert to different purposes when necessary. And in terms of operation, I think local management will be the trend. And of course, it doesn't mean that the expat will lose on their jobs. However, like people mentioned many times about cutting costs and multitasking team, through our observation so far, and we believe that local management will be the new trend.
Thank you. I'll move along to Mr. Duck and Mr. Fien now. Yeah, so condotels and branded residences. Two questions. One is, have you seen those properties performing better than the hotels because they're more isolated and more private? And what do you see for the future of condos and branded residences?
I think the whole market is negatively impacted by COVID-19 and its effect across sectors. And condos or branded residences, it serves certain supply and demand of the markets, both from the perspective of the investor, the purchasers of that unit itself, as well as the end user perspective. So, given that about 85 in 2019 numbers, 85% of the tourists are from domestic market, and it's surely that condo hotels or branded residents will, along with the other segments in other hotels and resorts, will recover along with the whole market. There are certain drawbacks or imbalance between supply and demands here and there because of the developer reputations or the legislation's difficulties in certain projects, but fundamentally the condo hotels or branded residences are the right concept. It serves well for the market, domestic market demands. To add on to that, then Vietnam market by its nature, the developers are very creative in terms of thinking about new products and launching new things to the market. So condo hotels, farm stay, branded residences, as long as serve the demands of the purchaser and it serve the end user demand, then it will have reason to exist, and as long as it's qualified up to a professional scheme.
So currently, Lodges doesn't have any condo hotel projects in operation, although we are looking at launching one, perhaps in the next 1 or 2 quarters. We've done some research. Market feedback so far has been good. It shows that the interest for this type of product is still there. Obviously, we are helped by the fact that our project is in Ho Chi Minh, which is within driving distance from Ho Chi Minh City. So we've seen that interest in this kind of market across all types of products has increased recently. I mean, people are looking at something, they can buy a second home within driving distance, something that they can see, go to very easily. So I think the demand is still there. Obviously, we know some other developers have launched in that area, and they've sold a couple of thousand units very quickly. So there are very encouraging signs.
Thank you. I'm going to do something a little bit different now, because I know we've got Adam Riley in the audience from BIM Group. As most of you will know, BIM Group is one of the bigger developers in Vietnam. So I thought it might be also interesting to get Adam's view on where he sees things heading in 2021.
Some positives first, really. I just wanted to sort of reach back because the guys were talking about on the earlier panel and a little bit before is one of the things at BIM Group that we're doing, and the people that don't know BIM Group, we've got 2 big developments, one in Phu Quoc, one in Ha Long Bay, and they're considerable developments. When COVID-19 first struck, and then when we were going through it before the second wave, our chairman said, look after your talent. Look after your talent. The number one thing is your talent. So we did take, leave without pay at all of our properties, but maintain your staff. So when we come out of this, we can come out of it strong. And so talent was number one for BIM, to look after it. Came through loud and clear through our board of directors. Looking at sort of 2021. We're looking at it, and hopefully we're right, and everyone's sort of guessing at the moment, but the first quarter is domestic demand. Quarter 2, quarter 3, we're looking for regional demand, so borders to open. In quarter 4, we're looking at a little bit of global demand. So I'm hoping what you said before, Ken, on those international numbers, we go into the middle or to the the higher number anyway. But also what we like, and what we're doing in BIM at the moment, is looking at that domestic demand. And our developments is very much focusing on domestic. And so we've got a fairly healthy pipeline next year. We'll open the Regent in Q2, and that's down in Phu Quoc. And it comes back to probably one of the questions as developers, what are we doing? Is we're looking to work with partners where we can cluster to save costs. So we've got a Regent right next door to an Intercontinental. We're working strongly with the Sailing Club as well, where we can cluster and save costs. Part of our pipeline next year, we'll open the Zitadines, 580 room property in Halong Bay with the residents next door. We've got a boutique hotel in Phu Quoc that will open, a Sailing Club Villas that will open, and all going well, we might open a Holiday Inn in Laos as well. And a couple of other things in Hanoi, where our office is an extension to Fraser Apartments, and a really nice Japanese restaurant. So we see, this year was an opportunity to sort of step back, and we all see the problems. But we also, our board of directors invested, and I think someone said it before, it is the opportunity to invest in your assets, and where you've got some problems or you need to do some refurbishing, that's what we've taken. We know that the market will come back, and it'll be domestically driven for a wee while, but let's hope that international sort of travel can come back. I had 8 years in China, and I saw what happened with a lot of people traveling in China, and I can see a wave or a tsunami of Chinese coming across the borders when they open. So getting ourselves ready for that wave from China, from Korea and Taiwan is something that BIM's group is doing at the moment, just to prepare ourselves for 2021, 22 and onwards. So we're optimistic.
Thank you. Good. Thanks a lot, Anne. So how much time do I have left?
I think time is gone. One second. Thank you, Adam, very much. Let's pretend you were not ready for this question.
Sorry?
We have Nguyen. Nguyen, you are the time person, so how long?
No, how much time do I have left?
We have time for one question.
One question?
Yes.
From the audience or yourself?
Okay, so let's throw that open to the audience. We've got time for one question. Sorry, I thought we had a bit longer. But is there a question out there?
Yes. Nguyen, we have a question.
Yeah. Okay, there's one there.
My name is Leon Shears from Oriental Media. I'm not quite certain whether I should have asked this question at the first panel, but we've heard an awful lot about the negativity associated with COVID. And the previous speaker was the first person to talk optimistically. Thank you. We've talked about cutting back, reducing, changing, firing loads of people, etc., etc. One of the things, one of the assets that was mentioned earlier was, was staff. And those are very, very important. And possibly the second most important asset is customers. And nobody's talked about how you can treat customers better in the future, how you can be more careful with them, how you can attract them, how you can expand services. Everything has been about negativity and reducing costs. Does anybody want to make any comment about the possibility of improving the quality of the tourism and the residential stays that we have here in Vietnam?
Any volunteers for that one? Hannes, go on.
All in the sword here? No. Look, no, you're 100% right. Anything revolves around customers. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. You're absolutely right about this one. And of course, customers are very demanding, so they're basically driving what hospitality should be doing. It's not that people voluntarily come up with higher costs to solve a problem that doesn't exist. But I think the mindset is changing to a certain extent, that when we spoke about unhappy customers, there were people that maybe didn't have a nice view out of the room. Given the current pandemic, unhappy customers could potentially mean really, really sick customers. So the implications of what could go wrong went from unhappy to really, really, really bad. And that's what people start to realize, that in the process of this one, the whole concentration on the customer, I think, is changing, because once you start taking physically care of somebody, it changes your mindset. You get more involved with them, and you by taking care of them, keeping them safe, you also improve other things around them. So it's definitely a process that's happening. And I agree, you need to keep your talent. These are things you cannot learn overnight. You cannot have a textbook, read it, and suddenly you're a great people's person. That doesn't work. And in any new market, when you look at the pipeline, every new hotel is going to try to find new stuff. Where they're going to find that? Well, in the hotel next to me. So if you don't keep your staff happy and keep them involved and take care of them, you're not going to have the reserves to take care of your customers, and that's a bad thing.
Would anybody like to add to that? Okay, so.
Again, if you have a great question that will take 30 seconds to answer, I'll still give you a shot.
It'll take me 30 seconds to ask it, Mauro. Okay, I'll throw it open to whoever wants to answer it. But, you know, we'd started to see a move to second and third tier cities in terms of development. Now, is the impact of COVID going to speed that up, or is it actually going to hold it back?
Sorry, I'm holding the microphone today.
I wasn't looking at you to answer.
No, look, we as a company, we already have developments in second-tier cities, and they're actually not that small, they're actually quite big, and traditionally would start with residential, and then you work the market up. There are new hotels coming up over there, they're all very local, but because you have a stronger residential base over there, you've got more companies over there, more income, you've got more business travelers, and that's the first step for the city hotels. If a second-tier city is a good place for a hotel or resort just because a second-tier city is a difficult question. A lot of local developers go into second-tier areas, which are still very beautiful, it's just difficult to get there. And then you found your own airline to bring people over there. But I think it's a good thing to do, and it's happening because development costs are lower, and people want to see different things. They don't want to go to 3 cities all the time. They want to see something else. And I think it's going in the right direction.
Thank you. One last comment from Jen.
I think with lots of public investment in infrastructure across Vietnam, especially the road, national road leading from the north to the south. Definitely with that huge public investment, it will unlocking lots of values along the coastal lines of Vietnam. And with the COVID impacts, obviously everyone in these rooms will know that, you know, drivable distances like nearby Ho Chi Minh or Hanoi will definitely be destinations in the future. I think that is a trend, and it's unavoidable. Just want to add one more point on that.
Yeah, actually, our group, we're putting a lot of emphasis on second and tier cities, like what happened in China, say, 20 years ago. Where you saw a big development in second and third tier. We're developing hotels in places like Dak Mil, Quang Chi, Vinh Long, some places where even the Vietnamese don't even know where exactly it is. Because we really believe that those are cities which in, say, 5 years plus will develop. And what we're also doing in these cities with these projects is that they're all multi-use. So we're doing hotels, retail, conferences. And on the top of that, we work with international architects and designers to make sure that they are of international standards. So they're not just concrete blocks. And together with, as I mentioned, we have a strategic partnership with an international hotel company who will do all our 15 hotels that we have planned, so that they will be strong branded, because I think both the domestic market and the international market are going to look for new places. We can see that happen in Thailand, northeast Thailand, which say 10 years ago, nobody would think of going there. Now that's where the development is happening. So we strongly believe that that's where a lot of the development will happen.
So, in the interest of gender equality, last word to Flo.
Unfortunately, prior COVID, the price of some areas in tier 2 and 3 are pretty high, because we do have projects in some places. And there will be corrections, of course, but the correction may be not big enough for the developers. Then for TMG, we will see that the values for strategic hub city will be increased. And also natural area in tier 2 and 3 will be also increased. And for those places in the less strategic and less opportunistic in tier 2 and 3 will be decreased.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Duck wanted to have the last words.
Sorry.
No. You're on, I think. No.
We intentionally did it, otherwise no.
Hello? Oh, okay.
Cut it out. Yeah.
So, yeah, I would agree with Roland that due to COVID, the domestic market has taken on, greater importance. So I think the development might even be sped up. Obviously, this is subject to certain considerations. For example, if the provincial government putting in, attractive incentives for investors to come in, for developers to start building. Also wanted to share, this year we have opened a new resort in Nguyen. It's called the Maya Nguyen, and a hotel that we are going to manage called Fusion Resort Quang Binh is starting construction this year. So, there are, encouraging signs for the second and third tier cities.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to thank my panel and also thank Savills,
Thank
of
you,
course, for
Mr. Ken
organising.
and the panelists. This was a great 30 seconds that Mauro have given to you.
Okay, thank you.
So moving up to the next part, we're going to show a few videos on the wellness, on F&B concept, on lifestyle brand, and we also have a few interviews with some overseas experts.
Thank you, Mauro. It is such a pleasure to be part of the Meet the Experts event in Vietnam. I'm quite sorry I can't be there in person and quite envious that you're already in a position to be hosting the event. We're definitely behind here in Singapore. So here with us today to talk on the subject of wellness and intelligent travel is Mr. Sonyu Shivdasani, who is the CEO and Joint Creative Director at Soneva. So welcome, Sonyu. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Stella. It's an honor to be here. And I'm sorry I can't be in person. I have really fond memories of Vietnam. Ava and I first went there in the mid-90s, and we developed some of the first resorts in the country with the Everson Anamandara in Nha Trang, and then the Six Senses, Ninh Van Bay, and then the Six Senses Con Dao. So we were sort of quite involved with quite a few projects with Six Senses at the time. So we traveled the country quite extensively and loved it. So I'm looking forward to returning one day soon.
I think I'm sure the audience at the conference would love to hear that. So, so it's a real privilege to speak to you in particular on the subject of wellness. I mean, wellness has been at the core of Soneva pretty much since day dot, and you were the very first person to bring in a spa into a Maldivian hotel, which now is an essential part of a Maldivian experience. So with the consumer's understanding of what wellness is constantly evolving, to you, what do you see the true meaning of wellness and intelligent travel today?
Yeah. Well, I think wellness and intelligent travel are slightly separate in terms of in my answer, but I think in terms of wellness, it's becoming more all-encompassing. It's no longer just what happens in the spa itself. I think people see wellness as a lifestyle choice rather than just going to the spa and getting a treatment. And we believe that our resorts should be entirely about wellness, not just the spa building. And that comes from various aspects. The food, clearly. We know for a fact that, as Hippocrates said many, many years ago, your food is, you let your food be your medicine and your medicine be thy food. He saw the importance of what we eat. It's surprising that even today in the 21st century, doctors still don't highlight the importance of good nutrition and good diet. So I had a terrible health crisis myself personally 2 years ago. And there was no advice from traditional Western medical doctors on nutrition. And that was quite shocked to me. But my health crisis made me realize the importance of diet and wellness in what one eats. And so I see that being a big change. Plant-based food is becoming more popular. So, for example, at Soneva, every Soneva has to have a plant-based restaurant, which is just serving plant-based food. A third of our menus in all our restaurants are based on plant-based food. We know that plant-based food boosts your immune system, immunity, whereas beef, for example, reduces your immunity, especially during these COVID times, one needs to boost one's immune system. So, and sometimes this focus on healing food can also be good for the environment at the same time. So, some of the key elements we're trying to reduce are white flour and white sugar. So we're using, for example, white palm sugar as an alternative. From the point of view of flour, instead of flour, we have complex carbs, red quinoa, red millet, red rice, bamboo rice, wild rice, as alternatives that are far healthier. But the two that we're trying to avoid for our guests from the point of view of health, which are also fantastic for the planet, are both dairy and beef. So after, you wouldn't believe it, but after the built environment, which accounts for 40% of greenhouse gases, the next biggest culprit, what do you think it is? Do you know what it is?
Yes, I do actually, because I gave up meat 2 years ago for that exact reason. So.
All right, it's cow, yeah. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cow accounts for 18% of greenhouse gases, far more than travel and tourism.
Exactly.
Travel accounts for 2%, air travel. So, and it's scheduled to grow by 80% by 2050 if we don't do something about it. So our beef reduction, for example, Soneva has reduced by about 80% already. So I think wellness happens throughout, not just physically. And then we're seeing big changes in gyms as well. I'm a big believer now in cross-functional training, and that doesn't necessarily have to happen physically in the gym. It can happen in the outdoors as well. So I hope that answers your question on wellness and how I see wellness evolving, especially in resorts.
I couldn't agree more. It's interweaving wellness into experiences rather than just having a box that says we do wellness, So I think that's exactly right. And for the owners and developers in the room at the conference today, do you see potential for luxury wellness in Vietnam? And what advice would you give owners and developers on how best to develop that product, I guess, on top of what you've already said?
Good. Well, I think that the demand for wellness and luxury is pervasive throughout the world, not just Vietnam. We're seeing those trends. The rich are getting richer. There's a bigger focus on healing and wellness and nature, bringing oneself back to nature. And Vietnam, from that perspective, has an incredible environment, has such beautiful nature. I have such great memories taking boats around in Van, Nha Trang, the islands out there, where the Six Senses in Van Bay is, for example. Such a beautiful area. So Vietnam is Dalat was stunning as well. So it's a country of such beauty, and provided that's preserved, I think people will want to come. It's in a location where you have such a vast population. You have China with over 1 billion people. You have Southeast Asia with another 600 million people. So when you compare that to, say, France, the largest tourist destination in the world with only 88 million tourists, we need to bear in mind that 90% of the arrivals into France are short-haul travelers. They're flying less than 4 hours. They're coming from the EU and Switzerland. But they only have 400 million people in the EU within short-haul distance. Vietnam has 2 billion people within short-haul distance. So I think the demand for Vietnam will be important, and the demand for wellness and luxury are trends that will continue. So to answer the question, provided developers play it right, they're sensitive to what they develop and they don't destroy the beauty of the environment that they're trying to protect. Like I remember when we opened the Everson Anna Mandara in '97, many years ago now, 23 years ago, all the islands around Nha Trang were beautiful. And then we came back a couple of years later and we went around this bay, I think it's called Bai Tru Beach, a Hontre Island, which is just in front of Nha Trang. And there was this huge development. It was like 700 rooms, which had completely demolished this beautiful bay. So that's a pity, because I think large mass developments over time will undermine the long-term profitability of Vietnam's success. So let's look at the Costa Brava. We know the Costa Brava, the Germans came along in the 70s and 80s and put these huge concrete structures throughout the Costa Brava. And what happened? They're now ghost towns. They're empty. Most of the communities that live there are very poor. They're suffering. They've been chased away from, just like the Spaniards chased the Mayans up the hills when they conquered Latin America. In a way, the Germans did the same. They chased the indigenous Spaniards up into the hills because they couldn't afford the beach land. But now they've abandoned it. There's no income. There's no employment. It's not attractive anymore. So sensitive developments, I think, will work well. And then, of course, what's key in travel and tourism is infrastructure, flights, good airlines, good airports, connections. So I think if those work and if the locations are protected well, so if people can get, we used to say at Six Senses, we had this phrase called remote but accessible. Sites that feel like in the middle of nowhere, because we have growing urbanization. A few years ago, 50% of the world's population were living in cities. That was a big threshold that was hit. By 2030, it will be 70% of the world's population. And it's very relevant to the successful in these markets close to Vietnam. Vietnamese cities, Chinese cities. There's greater urbanization. So people want something that's remote, feels like in the middle of nowhere, but it needs to be accessible. It needs to be easy to get to. So I think if Vietnam can address that, then I think there's huge potential. I love Phu Quoc as well. I remember going there, seeing these beautiful empty beaches, I think 10 kilometers on the north of the island. I'm sure there must be some resorts there now, but it has huge potential. So good.
Being stuck here in Singapore, I really want to travel hearing all of that. So let's hope that's on the cards sometime soon. Thank you so much, Sonyu. This is a short and sweet espresso shot, as Myra calls it. It's so great to hear from you. I'd love to talk more on, especially the subject of sustainability and wellness. But thank you so much for your time and your insight. And I think I'm going to have to pass back on to Nguyen back in Vietnam.
Very good. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sonyu. Nguyen, over to you.
Yes, Vietnam has a great potential to develop wellness tourism. Up next, we're going to show a video from Intercontinental Hotel Group, and then we will have a quick chat with Brian and Ambrose from Singapore. So now we are now connecting with Brian from Singapore.
It's really, really exciting to be here. Sorry we couldn't be with you there today, but we are here with you in spirit. My name is Brian. I'm the Director for Development for Southeast Asia and Korea from IHG.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Ambrose, Senior Director of Design, Luxury and Lifestyle, and very pleased to be here.
So today we thought we'd share with you something very dear to our hearts, and that is the world of lifestyle hotels. How we intend to do that is really to walk you through the why, the what, as well as the how of lifestyle hotels. So come on this journey with us. First, we'd like to talk a little bit about the why. So why lifestyle hotels? Well, using us as a company, I actually entered the lifestyle space about 15 years ago with Hotel Indigo. And the reason we did that was we really saw an opportunity. We saw lots of independent boutique hotels coming up all over Europe and the US, quirky, fun hotels. And we wanted to be a part of that movement. We made an investment, and today that has paid off. We're one of the largest lifestyle operators in the world. And today it is no longer a Western phenomenon. It's actually gone global. And so that is where we are today, and we're extremely happy. And we think that post-COVID, this will be an even more important element of travel. So who are lifestyle hotel guests, and what are they looking for in a lifestyle hotel? Well, the most important thing is they're not just millennials, right? I think there's a lot of talk about millennials, and they are one segment of the guests. But there's also groups in their 30s to 50s, and these are your professionals, your urbanites. They're your tech entrepreneurs, they're your bankers, they're your lawyers, your consultants. They travel all the time, and they're looking for something different, something social, something talk of the town, something where they can be themselves and be around the cool crowd. So what are these people looking for, right? How we thought we'd run it through you today is go through 3 of our brands with lifestyle elements and walk you through how we connect with these guests. The first example we'd like to use is Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants. This is our lifestyle luxury brand, and what our Kimpton guests are looking for are ridiculously personal experiences, luxury without the attitude, unscripted, pure human connection. And how do we deliver this to them? Well, it's very interesting. We actually start off with no real design. We start from a blank sheet of paper, and we work together with the owners, we work together with the designers and Ambrose's team as well, and we co-create a vision based on a vision that we come up with together for the target guests. We then layer on a personality, which is our muse. We give this aspirational guest a name, we give it a job, a gender, we give it hobbies, things they like to do, whiskeys they like, which beer types they like, what brands do they like? Do they have an Apple phone or a Samsung phone? And then we design the soft programming of the hotel around this target guest. We're also pet friendly. So on the left, you can see that's the opening party of Kimpton Taipei, the first Kimpton hotel in Asia. And what we did in the party was we invited Taiwanese celebrities. We invited alpacas, parrots, eagles, hawks, owls, and they were all a part of this giant party. And that's how we delivered Kimpton experiences. The next brand example is Hotel Indigo. This is our neighborhood hotel. And what our guests here are looking for is really a curated neighborhood local experience. And how we deliver this to them is we create a storyboard, a neighborhood story for the hotel. This then influences the design as well as the service elements of the hotel. And guests then use the hotel as a base to go explore the locale, be it the food, the sounds, the people. So it's all about the little stories. And finally, our vocal brand. This was created for independent hotels as a conversion-friendly brand. So what the vocal guests are looking for is something different in each different independent hotel, which has its own personality. But at the same time, it's also reliably the same. And that is where we layer on the unique vocal personality on top of these designs. So this is represented by our 3 mascots, which is the finch, which is the welcome experience, the owl, which is the sleep experience, as well as the flamingo, which is the social butterfly experience. And that is the vocal brand personality, which we bring out through this element. So next, I'd like to hand over to Ambrose, who will go through the how we bring lifestyle hotels to life.
So thank you, Brian. So I'll start by saying that we're feeling very, very honored to be invited to share on the topic of lifestyle brands and hotels, and something which we are personally very passionate about. Knowing that we are creating a product and an environment for guests who value and appreciate a moment to be inspired, to be intrigued, and to be delighted. I think it's an exciting space for us to be in. For the Voco brand, as Brian has mentioned, it was conceived as a conversion strategy for IHG. So as a design strategy, I would describe it as a scripted approach. By providing a design playbook, it defines design hallmarks and programming with the intent to create a vivid brand identity for these hotels. But I think more importantly, it is scalable. Sharing with you here a project that we're working on in Bangkok. Visibly, it has the distinct and identifiable colorways of the brand that gives it a vivid impression. As we space plan and we layer in the branded signatures, the Finch welcomes the guest into a cozy lobby where the key signature touch point, a barista coffee welcome, is offered to the guests. So the flamboyant flamingo introduces the vocal light into the space, where in the evenings, the bar transforms and enlightens to offer cocktails, tapas, for the guests to enjoy. The brand nuances and soft design elements are layered into the guest journey. The lift lobbies, the corridor ways that brings you into the owl, which is the bedroom where me time takes center stage. Bedroom interior offers guests a relaxed environment to retreat into with plush beddings. We do take the opportunity to invest and advocate sustainable design at Voco, which is a consistent philosophy for all our brands at IHG. Looking at recycled materials, large bottle formats, refillable water, rated shower features in bathrooms. The Hotel Indigo brand, I'll say the strategy is different. The approach is, I would explain it as really the art of storytelling through design. So I'm pleased to take this opportunity to share a project with you that is very close to home, at your home and home of ours at IHG, in one of the neighborhoods right in the heart of Saigon, at a site that is very near the Port District. We start with the creation of a narrative that is obviously inspired by the neighborhood of the property, to discover stories that can inspire and give character, add color to design. So in this case, it can be an iconic architecture like the historic Basson shipyard, or the French period post office building, or simply just capturing moments of daily life like roadside vendors, push carts, or stacked bicycles. So together with the designers, we explore ways to shape the interior spaces and develop design forms with the intent to be able to evoke or recreate a memory of a particular moment or space in the neighborhood. Objects that are found, reinterpreted, repurposed, together with a strong curation of artwork and styling. The Hotel Indigo lobby space is designed to be part and heart of the neighborhood where locals and guests congregate. There's a strong cultural programming in that space where local artists and musicians, for example, they are invited to perform, organize live studios, workshops where guests participate to learn new crafts and experience local cultures, customs. So in this property, a unique feature is that the lobby space is designed actually as a conduit between two streets. It welcomes the guests on one side from the main street, and it has a secondary connection at the other end of the lobby that leads guests to a lively pedestrianized alleyway, which is highly activated by F&B outlets in the evening. I had personally visited one of the famous four-piece pizza outlets along that alley and during one of my business trips. And it's such a delightful discovery to know that it is now our neighbor opposite our hotel entrance. The neighborhood cafe is the restaurant of the Hotel Indigo Hotel, designed with a strong local personality. In the morning, it invites guests into a personal home pantry to pick up local flavors and to enjoy a true taste of the neighborhood. And in this particular neighborhood cafe, it does have a hole in the wall that opens up to the rear that sells fresh bakery products to the passing explorers along the alleyway. Meeting spaces that are inspired by the materiality of the streetscapes uses a collage of industrial elements to create a sort of an old world industrial charm atmosphere. Kimpton. I would like to say that Kimpton is akin to creating a social destination with uniquely distinct R&D outlets and programming. The Kimpton is design-led. Each hotel is anchored in its own design perspectives with a level of sophistication, but yet remaining approachable and often with a sense of wit and playfulness into the art and styling. Design is thought through the details down to the uniform design of the staff that reflects the individuality and charisma of each property. Each Kimpton is a brand of one, individually branded and named. I'd like to share the strong belief of our founder, Bill Kimpton, and he believes that heartfelt human connections make people's lives better, and he wants to create an environment that he can host and encourage social interaction and for people to enjoy a conversation over a light-hearted drink. Living room spaces being the main social meeting node of the hotel is the venue that hosts the evening social hour. And this is the opportunity where the GM and the team connects with the guests and enjoy a catch-up at the end of the day. So I'd like to take also this opportunity to share with you our recently opened Kimpton Mala in Bangkok as an example of each hotel having its own personality and design inspiration. So in this case, the living room is essentially an art gallery within a garden in the heart of the bustling city. There's a strong commission of art and sculpture pieces that's curated as pause moments along the guest journey throughout the hotel. As shared with you, a strong, distinct DNA of Kimpton is the locally loved restaurants and bars that are independent destinations in themselves. And within the Kimpton Mala in Bangkok, each outlet is carefully crafted, individually branded, offering unique dining experiences and concepts. They are standalone where external guests will want to come and enjoy a nice experience together. So as you can see in these images, each stands out from one another, distinctly different. Inventive meeting space is another key DNA of the Kimpton brand. It celebrates the social aspect of any purpose of coming together, for example, conferences, networking events. And we look for that design inspiration to create memorable spaces and hence create memories for our guests.
Brian, can you hear us? So first, you guys were so good that people actually thought there was a record video. But at least good that you can hear us. We are a bit running out of time, so we'll ask you to maybe just close it up with a final slide on that. Tell me in 30 seconds, where do you see the Kimpton in Vietnam?
Great. So in Vietnam is really a place where we love to launch Kimpton. It's obviously a luxury product, so it needs to be in the right kind of locations where people are interested and have that social element about them. Saigon is for sure a location, Da Nang, and a few other places. So I think the unique thing about Kimpton is we very much look at the location, we look at the market, and then we design and we concept from that. So we're very open-minded, and we're actually very open to listening to what people have in mind.
Are you really discussing with some of the developer about the Kimpton? Anything you can share with us that nobody knows?
By definition, then no one would know. But we're very open, and we are very keen to have conversations with potential owners on Kimpton.
Thank you very much, both of you. We have a lot of architects today. We'll love to ask you 100 questions, but unfortunately we are running out of time. So, Nguyen, you close, I close. So thank you very much for the connection. It's good to people to realize that you actually guys are live and interact with us. That's good. Thank you very much, and we'll now move to the next speaker. Thank you. Maybe we play the last one. So we have the standard. We'll show you a short video, and together with the video, we'll also get maybe a bit of a drinking as we are going through the end of the day. Now, we'll try after to connect with Kavi. We had a bit of a problem in the beginning, but we'll try our best to connect for the last 5 minutes before the last panel. There was, I think, yes, you can give a round of applause. That's the good news. The bad news is that unfortunately we cannot connect. We have a bit of a problem into the connection with Kavi, which is the director for the standard based in Bangkok. So what we have, because my team is so good, that we have a backup plan, and we're going to show the 5 minutes interview with him, where he will explain us a little bit, hopefully, what is the standard about and how developer can turn the hotel into this.
Hi guys, I'm Kavi and I work for the Standard Hotels. If you're watching this recording, unfortunately, I couldn't be with you on a live stream today because something's gone wrong. But I'm happy to have just a few minutes of your time to talk about the Standard and some of the things we do that are different. As some of you have noticed, our logo's upside down. And that's because we like turning traditional hospitality also upside down. And we like to do things differently at the Standard, of which the core is sometimes F&B. I thought we would take F&B today and share with you some of the tips that we do that make us different in terms of our F&B operations that allow us to generate more revenue from food and beverage. It's not uncommon for one of our hotels to have 50% or higher of total revenue coming from food and beverage. Now, most hotels, average food and beverage revenue be maybe 20-30%. And some people ask us, how do we have so much higher F&B revenues, and why do we operate, so many F&B outlets? A traditional hotel group only looks for F&B for a hotel guest. An F&B outlet would be generated towards tourists, and trying to, yes, be local, but to be local in a way that is not for a local person. They are local in terms of a tourist coming to see the hotel, and I offer you local dishes and so forth. But is it truly an authentic local experience? I don't think so. I hope you enjoyed the video you just watched. As you can see, the Standard is a crazy place. In terms of a lot of art happening, music happening, food. Food and beverage is definitely a core of what makes us special. And so today, I thought I would take just a few minutes to introduce to you a few tips we do for F&B that make us different, as a lifestyle brand. Tip number 1, the glass is always half full. We at the Standard believe the glass is always half full. What does this mean? Revenues, it means in terms of revenue, we aren't looking at a hotel guest to generate the F&B revenue. We look at locals to generate revenue for us. So for example, in an environment like now, even though there is, very little travel between countries, domestic travelers and locals alike would still patronize the F&B revenues and outlets. So for us, the Standard becomes a pillar of the local community by having really cool F&B. So don't tailor F&B to guests in your hotel, guests that fly into the country, but cater F&B to the local people that are around it, to be the center of the community. We want people from other hotels to walk down the road and ask a local person, hey, where should I go hang out? And for them to say, oh, you should go hang out at the Standard Hotel. What truly makes a local experience is locals hanging out at the hotel. It's not a local experience if you're just giving somebody a local dish, at a hotel that is catered for a tourist. So tip number 1, the glass is always half full. Tip number 2, the glass is always delicious. What does that mean? That means have something for everyone. We at the Standard have a high-low concept in our hotels. And what does this mean? It means even in terms of F&B, there should be something food and beverage offering for everyone. It doesn't matter if you want to have a fancy glass, and an expensive drink at the top of the Standard and pay, something $30, $30, or have a cheap beer, at the bottom of the Standard, and which is cheap, and have a $5 ticket for a beer, and a pretzel, for example. So have something on offer for everyone. If it's everything from a cheap beer, casual, when I can walk in with my shorts and t-shirts and hang out with my friends, to the top of the Standard, which is all about glamour, fashion, after parties. So everyone is welcome in our hotels. We like to have an offering for all kinds of people. It doesn't matter if you'd rather have a Sunday brunch or a heavy Friday night. Tip number 3. The glass is always upside down. As you've all noticed, our brand is upside down. And so are we. That doesn't mean we do things that are funny or strange. It just means we challenge the status quo. We like to do things differently at the Standard, and so should you. Who says you can't have a hot dog and caviar, for example? Recently at the Standard, we launched the Yacht Dog, which is a $99 hot dog, which is served with a side of caviar, of which proceeds go to charity. This has attracted a lot of media. And what does this media do? The media, in fact, helps us generate more revenue by doing these funny, crazy things than, your traditional forms of advertising. All right, guys, I'm pretty sure the drink should be coming in from the back of the room. So on behalf of us at the Standard, cheers. Have a great drink, and I hope you've enjoyed your day. Ciao.
Cheers. Mauro, over to you for the final part.
Okay, thank you, Nguyen. We reached the final part of today. So I'll go straight on to invite our panelists, which should be around us. We also have a connection still, so we're still dealing with technology. I think it should be fine. We connect to Australia. Please go ahead. I'll promise you we do a quick one, a good one, and then everybody enjoying the drinks and networking. Please, guys. Our Italian friends here is already complaining about the color of the wine. Okay, is Carl connected? Excellent. So I'll start by, this one will be a bit more on megatrend and design panel. I'll start maybe just asking everybody to introduce themselves so that you know who is in a panel, and then we'll start with a few questions. I ordered the wine for us as well, if you don't mind. It's been a long day for everybody, so we'll get some wine going. Luigi, please.
Hi everybody. My name is Luigi. I'm the CEO of SC Project Asia, which is a subsidiary of SC Project from Milano. And we do architecture design, planning, and in Vietnam we're trying to work for the hospitality, but more for the heritage, so promoting the renovation of old buildings and converting them in other functions.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for hanging out all the way into this time. I think we're scattered everywhere now, but my name is Han. I am the CEO of the BIM Factory. We are one of the first few BIM-enabled companies here in Vietnam. We started in 2014. I founded the company back then when BIM was hardly a buzzword at that time. We've grown quite since, and now we are one of the leading BIM consulting company in Vietnam, and we work on projects all over the world.
Well, good evening. My name's Andrew Frost. I'm the founder and owner of Dark Horse Architecture. Dark Horse is now just turned 5 years old here in Vietnam. We've been focusing on the hospitality sector over that 5 years, had many resorts now completed, and are very excited and was attracted to Vietnam because of its great potential to evolve new and relevant models for hospitality in this market.
Hi everyone, my name is Jean-François Chevance. I am the design director as well as the hospitality design director for Architect Group. We founded Architect Group about 18 years ago We provide architectural, engineering, and construction and project management. We are now in about 15 different countries, mostly in Asia. We have projects in a lot of different sectors, and of course in hospitality. Right now in Vietnam, you can see our name on some projects such as the Mandarin Oriental in Ho Chi Minh City, the Hilton Garden Inn in Ho Chi Minh City as well, the Avani in Vientiane, Laos, and we're also doing a couple of renovations, but we'll come back to that later.
Thank you. Carl, can you hear us and can you connect, please?
Hey, what a great show, Mauro. It's really good to see so many familiar faces. I'm Carl from Indonesia. I'm stuck in Brisbane right now. I wish I was up with you all. We're contributing to the engineering design of hotels in Vietnam for 20 plus years. Many of you will know recently we have been acquired by Tokyo Construction. When you get off the train in Shibuya in Tokyo, you'll see many hotels Tokyo on the top. So I'm sure you're going to see a lot more input from our company to the industry going forward.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for connecting. I'll start with just a very general question to everybody regarding the business. How was the business this year, and how do you see it next year for your company, but generally for the hospitality business? And maybe Luigi, just in order, take us through your Italian optimism.
Well, quite optimistic actually. I mean, to be honest, I'm busier now compared last year. So I see positive, and the country is young, still need a lot of things to do. So next year I think we will be busier. So positive.
For us, as far as business is concerned, is actually kind of going more better than expected, because most of the things we do are outsourcing. We handle a lot of outsourcing from other companies all over the world, especially the U.S. So the U.S. is obviously, being hit hard with the COVID-19. So then they are outsourcing quite a lot to other countries, and Vietnam being one of the countries that is very attracted to them. So surprisingly, May and actually March and April was really the hardest months for us, but then for the most part, it's been going quite well. So we're hoping to keep that trend going.
Well, being here for 5 years, I've seen a fairly big change, and we've grown very rapidly with the market. I think the biggest challenge going forward from this point is a lot of owners are looking very seriously at how they move forward with confidence. A lot of the hospitality market is based around sales and leaseback. Huge challenge for their finances to move forward. And I do think that this is going to be a very challenging time for some of those projects which have just got to a position where they want to go to market to see their projects move forward, and now they're just waiting to see what happens with the market response to that product.
For us at Archetype, we've been impacted, of course, depending on the countries. This is more or less a problem. We've been impacted by cashless clients, impacted by the travel restrictions. But this only lasted for a month or two, and now we can see a clear pickup of the business with different jobs. And I was saying we're doing renovations. I think it's a perfect time for hotels that can afford it to start renovating. We're doing the renovation of the Movenpick Hotel in Hanoi, another hotel in Ha Long as well, which is rebranding. I think this is a new way to go. You don't know what to do, you don't have clients, and if you have cash, if you can afford it, renovation is a new market right now.
Carl, please, how is he? And you just, maybe you share a news with us on your recent acquisition. I think you have some good news to share with us, Carl.
Yeah, sure. Very similar to others. I've seen a few waves in Vietnam come and go, and I think we're just seeing a repeat of the waves more than anything new. A year ago, we felt the hotel pipeline was past its peak. You know, we were seeing approval and debt issues, holding up projects, a lot of discussion on approvals, you know, a lot of discussions on debt. COVID certainly has made an impact, but perhaps it's pushed the authorities to adjust their policy levers. Approvals seem to have unfrozen. Debt hurdles perhaps have lowered. And we're seeing less discussion on the Vietnam change government. All I can hear you talking about Trump and the US, but a year ago there was more discussion on the Vietnam perspective. We're actually seeing more activity across the board, also in hospitality. A 70-story hotel in Ho Chi Minh City, for example. I'm thinking maybe activity will be less frothy going forward, but investors, developers, owners looking long-term and seizing the day.
Thank you, Carl. I'd like just to move maybe with the first question here with some of our expertise. We all love hotel, but the reality are they're not easy to put it together. And a lot of developers in Vietnam are first-time developer or first-time hotel developer, and they just don't quite know the process, the right process into. So maybe you guys have a lot of experience into what is the wrong and the right way, and what are the typical mistakes that you see them developer doing that it could be avoided to get much better product. Maybe Jeff, we'll start with you.
Is this where I say all the mistakes I've done?
Sorry?
Is this where I say all the mistakes I have made? Or?
Yes, that's a mistake.
So yeah, there are thousands of possible mistakes in hospitality, but I think you know all about that. It's an oversized restaurant, an undersized back of house, 20 different types of rooms. I think we should focus on the mistakes that are made at the very early stage of development. In general, when we don't have an experienced developer, we are very often faced with someone who wants to go very quickly without taking the time to really analyze the site, analyze the place where the project will be. And I have just two examples about that. The first example is about a middle-sized hotel, big brand, big name, very experienced, and everything was in place. The area program was there. It's been done perfectly since the beginning. The only thing is that they didn't have an idea about the regulation, and the regulation, especially now that we have more enforcement, and this is a pre-COVID situation, they will force the developers to apply the regulation to the letter. And for example, the number of car parks and a very small land means a deep basement, and the impact on that basement on the total operation is negative. And our client now is considering reducing the number of rooms or completely redoing the program. The other example I've got is also, but this time in Hanoi, also a big brand. Everything was in place. The operator was on board. The program was done. Everything looked perfect on the paper. The GFA was good. Plot ratio was good. The only thing is that they did not even make a sketch before they commissioned their designers. And just after a few hours of sketching, it was clear to me that there was absolutely no solution to put this number of rooms on that land. So the project was cancelled, right? So I think developers should really be aware of the need for preparation before running into a design process, just to have some kind of site study coupled with a financial study.
Thank you. Andrew, please, you have the chance to really bring in all out there. What are the mistakes that you see?
Okay, so in Vietnam, there are many first-timers in the development sector. There are many people coming into the market, and they do not do their research. They do not deeply think about what they're doing beyond an investment vehicle. They don't see that they're creating an experience for a guest. They don't try and understand what they are going to offer. So I would really encourage all developers to think very seriously about how they understand what hospitality is about. It's not just a residential property product. It's actually much more complex. And I would encourage them to actually have a meaningful debate with an operator. It's all very well and good to start a master plan, to then start to try and get the land and all those sorts of things, but you need to have a vision, and that vision has to last the duration. So it's very good to engage with an operator who's going to bring you a lot into that ongoing relationship. Then I would ask you, have a thorough process. Don't run a process where you segregate the designers into a phase-by-phase environment. Many times I've annoyed Carl immensely because I've come in late as an interior designer and he's so angry that I'm going to change his MEP because the developer only wants to pay small amounts of money phase by phase. They do not see the value in having designers in the room talking about ideas and concepts about a ultimate ambience and experience which is going to be delivered down the track. And I'm happy to have the argument with Carl when I've been separated from him. I would sooner have it all at one time together in the room. So that's about being thorough. Finally, be prepared for the long haul. I don't see developers doing their feasibilities. I'm sure the number of projects that I've looked at in the first 9 months of this year where they're all scratching their heads saying, oops, we now need to think about phasing. We now need to think about how much we're going to do because they never had a feasibility, they never had a proper QS doing their process. So it's about having a complete, holistic approach to hospitality, which is where you're offering a guest environment, guest experience, which is hopefully memorable, distinctive, and has a longevity into the future.
Thank you. This was just getting you started, yeah? Luigi, please, you guys have something to add on what it could be done, what could developer do better?
No, well, I totally subscribe, Andrew. It's a problem of vision. From the technical point of view, depends, you know, sometimes they have a good big project manager, so actually it's not a big problem. What is really, let's say, difficult is to get the vision. And the vision, because hospitality is not only a building, is not only a room, and the investors often, they only concern about building something rather than build a destination. And that's actually, for me, the worst part, in my opinion.
Carl, please, do you want to add anything on our complaining session?
I want to be contrarian, okay? You know, 10 years ago, our client base was made 80% foreign. And today, it's probably more than 80% Vietnamese. So rather than underscore mistakes, I'd like to actually suggest that we've seen people learn a lot of lessons, sometimes obliquely. For example, whilst I would encourage early operator involvement and good process, you know, I agree with all of that. We have some clients, some big clients, people in the room, who have learnt a lot over time and who are better at engaging operators later and branding after they've actually delivered the hotel, or bringing in the operator early at concept, letting them go and bringing them back when they're a tender. So, you know, I've got two very good examples in my mind where we've had very successful Vietnamese development projects that have done both of those. So, whilst I'm still going to encourage early operator involvement, good process, architects and engineers working together, hey, there's a lot of good clients in Vietnam who do things differently, and we have to adjust to that.
Thank you, Carl. Han, for you, I have a special add-on for this question, because you guys are all about trying to improve process, design and operation. We know we have a few slides for you, 3, to really explain us what BIM is about and how does it help.
Yeah, I mean, to answer, to follow up with your question is that, you know, I hate to tell the developers, which are our clients, what they're doing wrong. But, you know, for the most part, I think underestimating the process is something that most developers, not just Vietnamese developers, but developers in general, that do wrong. They underestimate the timeline, they underestimate the budget, understanding the standard, and knowing what a hotel is supposed to do, or supposed to, the experience of a hotel in general. So I think that's something that's quite critical for developers in general. But in terms of process, I want to really quickly, I have 3 slides that I wanted to explain about this process, and a lot of it, for those who don't know, and I was talking outside, and there were there were a few people that asked me, you know, what is BIM, what is BIM? So I want to take this opportunity to quickly explain. BIM stands for Building Information Modeling, and not mistaken for the BIM group, which is a big time developer. BIM is a process that will help to save time and cost during the design, construction, and operation of any project. That's what BIM does. It's a process that helps to save time and cost, okay? And in terms of BIM has many phases. There are many stages of BIM. You can see behind me here, you know, you have the design. First you have the bid and award, which is the planning phase, and then you have the design and engineering, and then you have the development and so forth. And throughout the life cycle of the building involves BIM. And BIM can affect in each of those phases. And during this time, during this COVID time, we know that one of the things that's going to be really critical is that we understand that design in general is going to change the way we look at hotels. I think we talk about the recovery period in 2024 and so forth, but from now until 2024, what are we going to do? How are we going to change our design? How are we going to change the way that we operate the hotel right now until that time? And frankly speaking, from my perspective, once we get to 2024, it's actually going to still be the same. We're going to have to change the way that we take vacations, change the way that we experience leisure moving forward. And then one of the other things that I want to quickly talk about is the idea of how it affects through a certain phase of the project, building information modeling. One of the things that it does is that during the design phase, it's front-loaded, which is something that is, for those who don't understand, is that you're going to spend a lot of time at the beginning of the project doing concept. You're going to spend a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of resources at the beginning of the project, where it's going to save you money towards the end of the project. You can see this diagram right here. In the gray area, that's a typical traditional process. If you do how everything works now, where you start really small, really low, where you don't invest in a lot of money per se, and then it gets higher and higher as you go throughout the projects when you find out things that are so many, the problematic things that are happening during your project. So that's where the total time frame, it drags towards the end. Where BIM comes in is that it drags towards the front, where you solve and you worked out all your issues and problem in the beginning, and then when you get towards the end of the project, when you get through the construction part of the project, where it gets really costly, that's when everything reduces. And that's what BIM does. It's a front-loaded process. And then obviously, during the construction process, that's when it costs the most money. When you're building a project or you're developing a project, BIM has known to save roughly 20 to 40% of total construction costs. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to cut off your budget. It's actually going to mitigate the overspending. So anybody who does a project, who does development, understands that, you know, you have a budget, you have a schedule, you have a timeline, right? What BIM does is that it meets the timeline and it meets the budget. It doesn't save you from the budget, it meets the budget. 99% of the time, traditionally, when you build a project, it's going to overrun your budget. That's a given. You know that's going to happen. So that's what BIM does. It eliminates that overrun and keep your project on budget. And lastly, the biggest part of, as you know, during the construction, if you're building your project, it takes about 4 to 5 years. But the operation and the maintenance and facility maintenance of it, it's going to last you about 20 25 years. So that's where your cost is going to be the largest, not during the construction, not during the initial investment, but during the operation and facility management of your facility. So that's where BIM comes in. It saves roughly about 20-25%, which is a large amount of money if you look at it over a 25-year span. And lastly, in terms of hospitality, that's so far, I can't say that. But in terms of hospitality, these are the kind of things that we have to kind of consider when you're looking in terms of utilizing BIM for your development. First is what Andrew spoke about briefly was about the standards and how we look at the different standardization of your facility, whether we're looking at different activities or we're looking at 5-star, 4-star, etc. So that's something that BIM can help to sort of to plan ahead, to sort out your standardization within your project. So if you switch from a 5-star to a 4-star, you don't have to redesign the whole thing. The standards are already there, and you can switch immediately, right? And then during the design options, right? So as you design the process, as you go through the design phases, you're going to go through a lot of options and a lot of planning. And what BIM does is that it allows you to change through these options immediately and quickly, because you're going to plan it out differently. And then it coordinates and make everybody relevant. The entire team is involved during the entire process. And then last but not least, obviously, the facility management, what I mentioned before. It simplified that entire process. Everything within a BIM process is digitized, meaning from beginning to end. So you have everything, all the data, all the information is within your model throughout the life cycle of your entire project. Right? So.
Thank you very much. We have a bit of echo coming back. I don't know if it's because Carl's microphone is on, but Carl, if your microphone is on, maybe when you don't speak, I suggest you to take it down. Just on a follow-up question, you guys are working a lot with BIM system overseas. You're based in Vietnam, working overseas. What's the future for Vietnam on the BIM? Do you see people improving and start to using it?
Yes, definitely. BIM. As I've been working with the Ministry of Construction, and I sit on the BIM steering committee since 2014, and we've been writing the BIM roadmap for Vietnam since 2014, and we have a roadmap that is that we are planning to launch, and that within the next few years, BIM will be required within a specific sector. For specific projects. It's going to start with government projects, infrastructure projects that will be required to use BIM during that process. Projects that are exclusive to FDI. Those are the projects that are going to have to be required to use BIM. And then eventually in 2022 and 2023 is when the private sector, certain projects of certain size and certain costs will be required to use BIM. Here in Vietnam.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll move to one more section, go further into maybe rediscussing about the megatrends and all the change and some of the topics discussed today. And I'd like to move in one of the topics that has been hot in Vietnam in the last few years, which is condo-tel. Actually, I'd like to talk about branded residence. And maybe Andrew, you are one of the designer of branded residence here. How complex those products are for Vietnamese to put them together and what they should look at into doing it right?
Okay, so for branded residence, I'll speak to what I think the developers need to think about. You're adopting and going to develop a brand. You're looking for a premium because your product has a brand. You're looking for a premium price and a saleability of it. So you've really got to commit to working with that brand that you've adopted from somewhere, not necessarily created yourself unless you've got an extremely good in-house operational team, and you're going to be creating something which is an attractive. There is many different models of branded residence. Residence within hotels, within resorts, adjacencies, or a residential development that has an overlay of management and operation where it adopts the standard coming from a hotelier and the like. Huge challenges about quality, service standards, consistency of service standards, and most importantly, trust that you're going to have that as an ongoing relationship, ambience and experience. So for developers, it's a lot to learn about those brand values, those brand standards, and maintaining them. For a designer, very exciting type of environment. It's got everything in it. It's got many aspects of design where you're testing yourself about the residential accommodation component, the facilities and the environments and the ambience that you're created. It's a very exciting type of project. It's only slightly less complex than doing somebody's bespoke house, because you're creating many people's homes and environments and you're making it very broadly attractive. So as a project type, it's fantastic, very enjoyable. You've seen many iterations of it hit the market here. We've been involved in many. We are seeing quality come, but there's still a lot of branded product which still falls short. And in the longer term, one of the biggest issues is maintaining that standard so that the market value remains into the future. So it's a great opportunity to be involved in a very unique and interesting environment. And of course, it's about hospitality and about that guest experience as well.
You work with some operator, international operators, some of your projects they are...
Yes, we have. We've been working with some in-house operators as well as with some internationals. And one of the biggest issues that we spend time on for Vietnamese developers, they often look at a piece of land and they look at the site cover and the development. They don't actually try and translate that backwards into an environment and an amenity which remains attractive. Unfortunately, in Vietnam and most Vietnamese planning controls, very high density. So you end up with very high density residential environments in a resort context. Doesn't translate always very well, leads to a lot of fairly banal outcomes. And so that's one of the biggest challenges, what the planning allows you to do relative to what you should be doing to create that brand ambience.
Thank you. Jeff, just to pass this same question to you. You guys are doing in Bangkok, one of the most exclusive branded residence, probably your project management there or doing some help. Can you just share with you your experience in that project? If you see that everything is going smoothly or just share the experience.
So
is the Aman, correct?
Yeah,
Aman Bangkok.
that's a fantastic project. It's the Aman Residences. For those who know Bangkok, it's located right behind Central Embassy in Nailet Park. It's a 36-story building with about 52 hotel suites and 50 apartments for sale. It's the first time, from what I know, that Aman is involved in a residence. They have never done that before, and so the process for designing this building is not very different from my previous experience with Aman, from what we have done, Amanoi and Amansara in Cambodia. This is their first residence project, so they are not very different from, their process has not changed. What we can compare them with is they are very secretive, probably the most secretive brand as far as design is concerned. It's almost impossible to see a mock-up room if you are not from a Man Group. But no, they have apartments for sales, so they will have to be behind in a different way. That's the only difference.
Thank you. Still on the megatrends, now I'll move away from branded residence unless you guys want to add something. Okay, I'd like maybe to pass it to you, Luigi, because last year we've been discussing about guest experience a lot today. Last year you were promoting a lot of heritage, kind of use of heritage building into real estate, and hotel could be a perfect match for an heritage building. What do you think is the future of heritage building in Vietnam and in Vietnam hospitality especially?
Okay, well, let's say that for hospitality, there is a lot of opportunity theoretically. In practice, especially the private sector don't invest in this type of project yet. They all waiting for government's initiative, and this type of projects require significant investment, and therefore it's still struggling. There are few illuminated investors that started already here in Saigon. I don't want to mention, but there is someone in the room. But the good things, the good result of our conference was to raise the awareness, especially among the Vietnamese. So, for example, a few weeks ago, there been another petition of the Architect Association against a horrendous project in Dalat that they wanted to rape a mountain and in the same time destroy villas that have significant values. And you see that the people start to raise the voice. And that's actually great. I'm very happy about that. The future, it's up to the people also in this room that they probably should try to think about their portfolio and not only build a glass building, but start to also looking at their own treasure that will help to create the destination, because that's actually Vietnam, with all due respect, is not a destination yet like France, like Italy, like England, but there is materials to work on. There is a lot of things. The problem is that nobody is looking at yet. So potential, yes. Actual projects, very little, very little. So but I'm very optimistic and positive because Vietnam is a young country, and I think it just need more push from some good investor that they start to do, and I feel many people will follow.
And from a guest point of view, would be great. I mean, all the using any history into a building, you have a story to tell, and therefore the guests will pay much more money for it. Thank you. I think we only have 5 minutes left, so I'll try to speed it up a bit. I still have a couple of questions left. Maybe I'll connect with Carl. Still on the megatrends, one of the biggest megatrends is, of course, going green. And you guys have this kind of support and you help a lot of people to actually get into green building. What's the future of green building in Vietnam, Carl?
Well, I'll focus on hospitality, I think. Wasn't the Geneva video wonderful and the discussion inspiring a healthier life? We kind of see green buildings as sustainable buildings, ones that balance life cycle costs and offer their experiences for a long time. You know, I really are architects who design things that last a long time. And from that perspective, we see hotel positioning and the associated guidelines for energy, water, etc., picking up on the green perspective. So if we have an office building, I can put a good case forward that you get a green certification, it's going to improve your yield. But with a hotel, it's a little bit different. And I think that the operator is in a far better position to lead and provide the specifications to pick up the green side of the building. For example, I'll share a secret. The guidelines of Intercontinental from IHG incorporate LEED requirements as a base. So that way they can follow green buildings and I guess they're not diluting their brand. So we've been their lifestyle brands today. They seem to continue that. I know they're green under the hood, but that's not on their badge. You know, they're looking at different things, a total experience. And that we learned today, sometimes things are going upside down. So I think green is very important for hospitality. It's been going on a long time. Operators have been keen on energy and water for longer than just about anyone. But maybe in the hospitality experience, we're seeing other things come through at the moment. Thanks, Mauro, back to you.
Thank you, Carl. I think my team want me to close because we are running out of time. Maybe I want Han to just add one small thing, because we've been talking a lot about design into aesthetic or functionality of hotel. We have a lot of people here that would love to have both. How you guys will help the operation of the hotel later on? Really 30 seconds.
I think at this time, if we're talking about aesthetics or function, I think right now we're looking at function. Functionality is going to be key moving forward as far as design is concerned. Just quickly follow up on Carl's comment. I was reading this article, and it says that, within the design industry, green has been a buzzword for quite some time. Every time you're developing a building, you want your building to be green, sustainable, and et cetera, et cetera. But right now, where we are at this moment, what we're looking at to replace that word green is actually clean. I don't know that the other panel, we talk about hygiene and so forth, but I believe that clean is going to be the new green, where you're looking and focusing your design around a clean environment. And looking at functionality is more critical because now you're going to look at spaces to be a lot more flexible, adaptable. Looking at spaces that have multi-functions and how people interact with one another. We're very lucky here in Vietnam to be in this environment right now, But we're actually very lucky because we controlled it very well. But once we open the floodgates, once the airport opens, then we're going to have a whole new problem. We're going to have a whole new approach to how we look at the environment that we're in. So that is going to change the design environment forever, in my opinion. So when you look at the design in terms of hospitality, you're going to have to look at how flexible your spaces are going to be. Like we heard that maybe there's not going to be any more fitness facilities. The buffet line is out the window. I don't think we're going to be able to serve buffet anymore. Right now we can because we're controlling here in Vietnam. But, what about next year? What about 2 years from now? So these are the kind of things that we have to look at, and these are that kind of things that we have to consider in terms of design. And it's very, very critical that we have to look at the flexibility of how our building operates.
Thank you very much. Andrew, I know you died to add something on that. Just please go eat, and then we all have a drink.
Okay, not to hold up. Hospitality is about hosting a guest and building an experience where there is an ambience and a potential memory that's being built. So if you're going to do that and do it well, aesthetics and functionality are seamless. It's not one over the other. Of course, functionality is important, as is the aesthetic. I can't see how you can have a great guest experience if the functionality is poor. If the building does not have a good green initiative and standards, it will not give you that overall performance and outcome and guest well-being experience. So it is holistic. Designing in a hospitality environment is a holistic relationship between, as a host and a guest, you're building an ambience which is hopefully memorable. We have not seen that at the forefront of most of the projects here in Vietnam. It's a huge opportunity to take the guest experience away from external examples, foreign examples, to create our own experience. It's not whiteface. It's actually about doing something specific and special here in Vietnam, being holistic and making sure the hospitality of the Vietnamese comes through the culture and that final interface.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining him in. Thank you, everybody, for staying until the end. Carl, thanks for your connection. We all envy you. Nguyen, do you want to close the conference? Everybody, please join us for the last few drinks. And thanks again for coming. And we'll do another one soon in 2021. Hopefully, we'll have much better news for everybody. Thank you.